1 minute warning. Ooh, the power of the hammer. I think we got everyone. Good, Jim. We're good? Okay, we're good to go. So I'll call this meeting to order at 6:01. And first step is to roll call.
Councilmember San Antonio,
Present.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Here.
Councilmember O'Hara,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Lyons,
Here.
Mayor Ehlers.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the council are present tonight.
Item 3 is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can stand, please join me. Ready, begin. Item 4 would be special presentations, and we have one tonight. It's a presentation of an award by the San Diego chapter of the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals to the city of Encinitas. And is it... And then we'll get a picture after.
Yeah, we have a presentation.
Yeah,
Is
just
there a
one second.
clicker?
I'm getting it.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Ruby, and with me, Sabrina Mamo. We co-lead the Association of Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals San Diego chapter, APBP. Now, in its 30th year, APBP is a community of practitioners working to create more walkable, bikeable places. We foster peer knowledge sharing, advanced technical expertise, and support the professional development of our members who work in the government, consulting firms, and in nonprofit organizations in the fields of transportation planning and engineering, urban design and planning, public health, and active living. Founded in 2014, the San Diego chapter furthers APBP's mission locally. We educate the community and peers through monthly technical meetings and public outreach. We promote the best state-of-the-practice pedestrian and bicyclist infrastructure by organizing local bike and walk tours. Additionally, we support our members' professional growth with steering committee meetings and social gatherings.
As the first year of producing the Agency of the Year Award, APBP wants to highlight agencies that focus on bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure development, as well as their public outreach and community education initiatives. With that said, our chapter unanimously supported awarding the City of Encinitas for their initiatives to implement lower speed limits under AB 43 and the expansion of protected bicycle infrastructure for users of all ages and abilities. We want to additionally recognize the city cycling classes, co-funding crossing guards, and safe routes to school education programs. Next slide, please. Just weeks ago, in the highlights of the award, APBP conducted a group bike ride with just over 20 participants and interested parties on a technical tour of Encinitas' existing, in progress, and future projects. The infrastructure tour educated participants about several projects located within the city limits, while also incorporating bike safety education.
Therefore, on behalf of the San Diego APBP chapter, we would like to congratulate the City of Encinitas as this chapter's pick for the Agency of the Year Award. Thank you for your continuing contributions to the pedestrian and bicycle transportation community. Congratulations.
Thank you. Did you want to get a picture with the council?
Yeah, that would be great. everyone. Let me see one this way.
Great, thank you.
I guess you're here to spirit.
Thank you. And we want to also present this little box. Thank you so much.
Next is item 5. How many do we have?
9.
9. Perfect. We can stay with 3 minutes and stay within the 30. Perfect. So let's proceed with oral comments.
I'll call you up 3 at a time, and just a reminder, oral communications are for anything that is not on the agenda tonight. First 3 speakers, Tony Kranz, Natalie Satoon, and Christine Schindler.
Good evening, council and members of the public. I was here last week and ended up with a minute less and sidetracked, a little bit distracted by the speaker before me, so I didn't get to finish. So I'm here tonight to kind of make the presentation that I originally intended to. I wanted to share this slide. This is an article that was written in 2015 about a city council's attempt in 2014 to close loopholes in state law, especially related to density bonus. I remember the night we did this in July of 2014. This room was full of people that were really excited. It was a land use decision that was quite rare because everybody that was in the room was very happy, myself included. And I think all the council was pleased that we could get to the point where we were pushing back a little bit. We thought we were exercising our rights under the law. Unfortunately, there was a certain awareness that it was likely the BIA was not going to agree with us, and we indeed get sued by the BIA. So Mayor Gaspar and I formed a subcommittee, hired a consulting firm, or a legal firm, a law firm, Goldfarb and Lippman, and she, Dolores, did a wonderful job of leading the city, Barbara Kotz, leading the city through the maze of legal issues that happened over the years. One of the things that this memo points out is that in 2017, there was a whole bunch of laws that were changed. It was the same year that Bruce was appointed to the Housing Element Task Force. We started working through the laws. It was very challenging. Get to this last election, you see this next slide here. There was this idea that we could stop overdevelopment, right? So there was a campaign based upon this notion that we could stop overdevelopment. I've added that arrow there. It says, vote for the team who will protect Encinitas from overdevelopment, which I knew was not going to be true. And when I campaigned in forums with Bruce, I made that point. Next slide, please. Here's how that went. This is the scorecard that shows how many citizens' appeals have been heard since the election. Bruce has a perfect record of denying every appeal. And you can see the other ones there. So stopping overdevelopment isn't currently in the cards. I did listen to the deliberations on that Quail Meadows project. I was shocked to hear it, housing equated with the Holocaust. I was shocked to hear it said that the previous councils didn't care about approving projects. We had the same amount of angst. I think your angst and pearl clutching was really inappropriate.
Thank you.
Hi, Natalie Satoon, Cardiff, Mayor, Council. I'm so happy to see you all up here. This is just wonderful for our town. I'm here tonight because I went to the Public Health and Safety Commission meeting Monday afternoon. It was my second in-person meeting. I went to one in November, which was highly disappointing. There were Brown Act violations that was not conducted well. And Monday's meeting was even more unprofessional. I would like to note that it was the first meeting for the 2 new commissioners appointed last week. The commissioners discussed the work plan. I'm sorry, these photos are for something else. Sorry. The commissioners discussed the work plan and the barriers they face in setting achievable goals because the last 11 months have resulted in no clearly defined goals and 0 accomplishments. In fact, it appears we have no ROI on the commission. We had 2 commissioners leave midterm, resulting in the city appropriating taxpayer expense in the form of staff time to replace the 2 who opted not to serve out their term. As a resident interested in public health and safety, I can easily identify impediments to your constituents not participating in a commission that could prove really valuable. There are only quarterly meetings peppered with specially called meetings that are not advertised. And then we have ad hoc committee meetings where there's no public participation. The 4 p.m. meeting time is tough for people working to be able to attend, and the topics are terribly broad and overarching. Some of their goals are in conflict with state and federal law. And why is our precious time spent on these topics that nothing can be done for? Another example of constituent disappointment, 10 people who normally we don't see at council meetings came because they are requesting more lighting and safer sidewalks on the 101 in Leucadia. And they came to discuss their issues that led to their friend Emily being the hit-and-run victim. And much of the meeting time was spent on prospective mental health fair to be held in 2026. The other 4 of us who were present, it was very empty. The other 4 of us who were present asked for basic tangible considerations, such as lighting, evacuation routes, and fire safety standards to be included in the work plan. And all of these appear to be very secondary to the efforts to a mental health fair. The new attendees left feeling very unvalidated. And during the course of the meeting, there was trouble with the chair taking a phone call, and after the meeting, he doubled down on it, and it just reeked of being very unprofessional. So you're not going to get people to come if this is how your meetings are being conducted. And it was disrespectful to the new commissioners, the people who were here, and all of the constituents. So thank you.
Thank you. And item 12A is about an item for, work item for, so anybody concerned about public health and safety, stay around for 12A.
Hello, Council, Mayor and Council. I'm Christine Schindler, East Encinitas. So I just wanted to congratulate the city and city staff, prior council, which includes Councilmember Deputy Mayor Joy and Mayor Bruce, Tony, who was here in chambers, and others in past staff that all did work to essentially earn this award given by APBP San Diego chapter. So I just want to express my continued encouragement for very good active transportation and Vision Zero commitments and policymaking and implementation and planning. Safer streets for all matters for everyone. So car drivers, walkers, bikers, micro mobility users. So I just want to see us continue good progress in that way. I know that there's been some recommendations from community members about ripping out projects. I just want to encourage you to be very mindful about that. There was a big process of planning before anything was ever shovel-ready. There's a lot of fiscal responsibility, money spent, good planning. We had poor implementation as far as the project itself and deadlines and the contractor, and I've talked about that many times at City Council. So certainly we've learned a lot from the project, but in the end, it's still under construction. It's not fully baked. Even with the pause, it will not be fully baked right now. It's not going to improve car congestion, car movement. It's still going to be the way that it has been. It's going to be a vast improvement for parking, for walkers, for bikers, for school area active transportation, and that was the goal of it. So I just hope that that will not be ripped out. I think that's a very short-sighted thing to even suggest. And the last thing I want, geez, this is awesome. Like, I have so much time with that extra minute. I just really, and I said geez, I didn't say Jesus, just so you know. I just really hope that we can retain the great staffers that we have, and I want to appreciate the great staffers that we have and that I've been working with for years. So let's keep them doing the good work that they're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next three speakers, Scott Campbell, followed by Molly Hentlian, and then Trina Priest.
And if Molly and Trina can move up to the front.
Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Scott Campbell. I live in Encinitas District 1. I'm here all by myself. Let's continue some of this forward-thinking stuff. What is the purpose of the city? It's to protect the citizens and its neighborhoods. Citizens are residents. Those are people with addresses. That's a key definition. And we need to think about this in terms of budgets, grants, and things like this going forward. Neighborhoods. Some of our neighborhoods have been getting impacted greatly. Encinitas Ranch, south end of Quail Gardens in the future, our friends on Via Molinas with parking. We need to think about this. Now, some groups in our city say our city is a world-class destination. Yes, our city is great. It's wonderful. It's unique. It's wonderful. What is world-class really in our city? Equestrian, maybe? It's not surfing. Surfing is mediocre by world standards. I'm guarantee that. Pickleball, possibly. Cottonwood Creek is out of control with pickleball. I drove by there today again. But what really they're selling are unique souls and character for marketing purposes for businesses. And I don't think the city should be pushing this. We should be for the residents and not so much for tourism. I think a lot of people would agree with this. If you're marketing and selling something, it's not unique. Now, the housing element says equal housing and jobs. And we've had endless battles of housing. I don't think we've had any real discussions about jobs. I don't think any businesses really have opened up. A few small mom and pop, liquor stores and alcohol establishments and things like that, but no real huge jobs, no 500,000 person jobs. If we're gonna have housing, we need to have jobs that coming in with this. How will they get there? What are the jobs? They're not gonna serve coffee and they're not gonna ride their bikes to out of town. I'm not riding my bike to Mira Mesa. I'm sorry, it's not gonna work. Now, this tourism thing, what do you think of the city of El Granada? That's where Mavericks is. What do you think of the city of Aptos? Probably never even heard of it. It's in Santa Cruz, so check it out. Goleta, Solana Beach, none of those you don't think of tourism. When you say Laguna Beach or Carmel, you think of tourism. Let's go in that first group and not that second group. That's where I want us to go. Money and finance, we just had a 45 minutes. Sales taxes are down, as predicted. Consumer goods is our top producer. And then restaurants and hotels, but then state and county pools, fuel service stations, food and drugs, auto transportation. Really, a very small amount of that is tourism. Once again, we should be promoting the residents vastly over tourism going forward when we think about budgets and grants. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I attended the electrification fair, and I wanted to share feedback, and I have a request. The event was well organized, and I found it very educational. I went specifically to further research induction stoves. A year ago, I participated in the San Diego Green Building Induction Cooktop Loaner Program, and the cooktops are distributed locally through the Solana Center. I was immediately hooked on induction cooking. But unfortunately, there are no appliance rebates. not locally, regionally, or nationally. And it's expensive, both the appliance and the infrastructure. There are rebates for solar, for heat pumps, for water heaters, and car charging, but zero rebates for home appliances, specifically stoves. It is costly to do a conversion from a gas stove to an induction range. It is expensive, especially for older homes that are operating off of subpar electrical panels. The choice is, show page 1, you can upgrade to a modern 200 amp panel that would cost anywhere from 12 to 15K. Or if an alternative workaround, possibly that would be 5 to 6K. That's a significant cost with no incentives. And then there's the cost of the appliance. An entry-level range is about $1,000. That would require multiple upgrades. And while at the fair, second slide, I learned about this new company out of Berkeley, very innovative. Very impressed with their product. It's battery-operated stove that only requires a 120-volt outlet to charge the battery. So while you don't need to do the electrical upgrade, the price is astronomical, starting at $6,000. So my request, and not sure what department to direct this to, the city needs to help sponsor appliance rebates to incentivize and help offset the cost to reduce our carbon footprint, even if it's just a stove. And speaking with Ryan Lampkin, I believe he's an Encinitas staff member. I think he's in your, thank you. He mentioned that there is something that the city is considering, and I want to advocate that we need a rebate program to help residents make an incremental step to reduce our carbon use. So that's basically my request.
Thank you. And we can get that information to our sustainability manager.
Good evening, Mayor Ellers and Encinitas City Council. I am Trina Priest, a middle school teacher and a mother of 3 teens. Here in our county, the average age of initiation of alcohol and marijuana use in San Diego County is the age of 12. Remember, this is an average, so alcohol, marijuana can and does begin earlier. Addiction is a pediatric onset disease, so preventing the initiation of harmful marijuana use cannot be underestimated. Youth lack the information necessary to understand the ramifications of drug use in general. When I think of the reason why that is, I notice the messaging around them. Social media, of course, the presence of marijuana storefronts and their delivery services, and now their large billboards. Together, they mute the messaging of drug use and its negative consequences. So I have been concerned about the pot shops named the Cake House and Wellgreens, since they in particular now have large billboards in Leucadia. If children grow up in communities where alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana businesses are common, their perception of risk of using those drugs will be muted. California State PTA has created a resolution against marijuana products stating, quote, "It is irrefutable that youth cannabis use generates decreased cognitive function, impacts on attention, memory, learning, and educational vocational attainment, and increased adverse effects on mental health for young people," end quote. Only pot profiteers have benefited from their existence here in Encinitas. Youth, families, teachers, law enforcement have not. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Final 3 speakers, Dave Dean, followed by Raul Villamar, and then Ellen Burr.
Dave Dean, associated with Dave's Rock Garden on the corner of 2nd and B. Hello, council and staff and citizens. First of all, congratulations again on solving the water issue that was leaking onto the sidewalk. Appreciate it after watching over 100 people fall. That no longer is going to be the case. What I'm here for tonight is to address another issue. What we're looking at here is water being discharged from across the street on 2nd and B This problem has been going on for about 10 years that I know of, and I've come to the city several times in the past and no resolution. But I was not adamant in my pursuit of trying to get it resolved. Recently, I reached out to the Public Works Department, Clean Water Division, and Camille Meadows has been A+ excellent in her service and helping me with this. What we have is water discharges from this pipe 3 or 4 times a week and runs out into the street and goes down to the beach unfiltered. If you walk the street, you'll see how the erosion of the asphalt has taken place over the years. And I believe it's going to be solved soon because Camille is A+. I send her pictures multiple times a week, and she immediately replies with an email and telling me the direction that she's directed it to the Waterworks Division. So I know they're on it and they're going to be taking care of it. What I'm here to say is all the citizens find different issues around their neighborhoods, more eyes, mouths, and energy needs to be spent by all the citizens reaching to resolve a multitude of problems. The council can only do so much from behind there, but ultimately it's the citizens standing up and protecting the city. So I encourage all city members to take an effort in your community and reach out and do your part to what you can do to make the city a better city. Thank you.
And I'll hop in with a quick public service announcement about my Encinitas app. I use it. I've actually had other people use it, so it wasn't the mayor or a council member turning it in, and it's pretty effective even when other people use it. So get it. You can report issues, homeless, all sorts of things, just like you did. And you can even geolocate and tag it. So public service announcement. Raul, you're next.
My name is Raul Villamar. I own Encinitas Barbers. It's a lot easier to walk from back there with the whole new crew than we have here than when I did before. More pleasant. I came down here because this morning I went to work, had all these cars coming by. It was a busy day today in front of us, but you had a lot of barriers being put out in front. Now, it was one way going this way, one way going that way. Across the street, in front of the sushi place, there's a truck, semi-truck, blocked everything, so then now you have one way going both ways. It jammed up everything. My customers aren't coming to downtown anymore. They won't come out. They get fed up on the parking. We still have parking. I asked before with the old council people if Founders Street behind the dispensary and all those places, is that for parking for everybody? Because it's jammed up. Why isn't the deliveries trucks being behind? Today I went down after I took a lot of pictures. I went down and I talked to all the pops and moms and pops, the places, and they're Mrs. Kim, she's upset. We're all upset. We need more parking. We need the barriers gone. We need if I can put my barbershop in front and pay $2.50 a square foot, I'd be happy. And I'm paying a lot more than for a small barbershop, which has 2 chairs. I wish I had a bigger barbershop, but no room in that area there. I just can't figure out what am I going to do. Sooner or later, I'm going to just back up and leave. We've been there for 45 years. I need a little help from you folks. I need some more, the parking on the weekends, it's terrible. My brother came down on Saturday to park, to come and cover for the other young lady who works for me. It took him an hour to find parking. There's no parking. But there is a lot of barrier. It's Super Bowl Sunday. I drove down all the way home. There was nobody at any of the restaurants except the beer garden. I don't want to be paying for his new house that he has because he wants to keep the customers happy. I prefer to buy my own bigger house, but in Carlsbad, I have a ADU in the back of my in-laws' house, pretty big family there. So, but I need some help from you folks. I'm tired of trying to talk about the parking. That's all my customers talk about. The handicap, I don't have any handicap. I have one, and the people, everybody uses it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. 3 quick things, since we now know that there is this huge fund to redo the stuff in this room. I'm thinking that maybe it would be nice to take some of that money and use it for a system at the community and senior citizen. And when it's not used, maybe it could be rented out with the person to operate it, because I'm sure there's other people out there that would like to have something recorded and have a meeting and whatnot. So just a thought that just occurred. And I wonder, regarding the budget, is there a way that we can get a breakdown of how much we get in federal dollars on an annual basis that we depend on or that we can depend on, and what the future might the outlook might be for that, if we have any idea? Because that's the big question, not just for the state, but for us, I think. And finally, Scott, I don't know where to go with this, but I was very disappointed to see that the Alea Maria is going to be adult only, which doesn't seem very family or tourist friendly. I don't know if they're come to the city to ask for permission to do that change or not, or the Coastal Commission. But frankly, unless they're going to charge a whole lot more for adult only and we're going to reap the benefit, I think it's not right. It's not right, and I would be sorely surprised if the Coastal Commission thought it was right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That does conclude speakers for oral communication.
Okay, thank you. We did not have, item 6 is report from closed session. We did not have a closed session, right? And item 7, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, one minor change. As we note earlier, item 8H was removed and was heard at the 5 o'clock special meeting. And then moving on to the consent calendar, no items have been removed by members of the public.
Okay, and would anybody on the council like to pull any consent calendar items? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent calendar.
A motion to approve consent calendar.
And a second?
I'm happy to second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second, and looks like nobody wanting to talk, so we'll call the question.
That motion does carry unanimously and takes us to item 10A.
Okay. Let's see. Item 10A is, I got to catch up. Item 10A is introduction of ordinance number 2025-03, approving a sewer reimbursement district on behalf of property owners Lang, London, I'm going to butcher the name, McChain, I hope, Sarasp, and Shipman. So with that, we'll start with a staff report.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name is John. I'm an engineer with the Land Development Services Department. And the item before you is introduction of an ordinance number 2025-03, approving sewer reimbursement district. So brief background, in January of 2022, developer Randy Lang was approved for 3-lot subdivision of his parcel in Olivenhain. Per our subdivision design guidelines, each lot was required to either connect to the public sewer system or approve or have a design for on-site disposal septic system. So, most likely due to site constraints, the developer opted to extend the main sewer line from Coal Ranch Road along El Camino del Norte to provide sewer service to the subdivided lots. In February of 2022, Randy Lang teamed up with 4 neighbors to fund the construction of approximately 14,000 linear feet of main sewer line. Upon completion, Randy Lang approached the engineering department to request the establishment of a sewer reimbursement district. Sewer reimbursement district establishes a special connection fee as well as all the parcels that will be included in the district and establishes means for the city to collect that reimbursement fee and then distribute it to the developers that contributed to the cost of extending the public sewer line, which is then accepted as a public utility. Municipal Code Chapter 18-12 allows City Council to approve the creation of this district, and the purpose being to provide means for developers who extend the public service to an area previously unserved to recoup some of the cost of that development. On this slide, we see the plat map and cost breakdown. So once the sewer was accepted by the city reviewed project receipts and analyzed the vicinity to determine which parcels would be able to connect to this sewer main and therefore being included in the agreement. So here you see the sewer main line highlighted in red and the parcels to be included in the district also shaded with red. You also see at the bottom here the total cost of the sewer, and then the 12 benefiting EDUs, which stands for equivalent dwelling units, that were included in the district. And then we arrive at the assessment fee per EDU by dividing the total cost of sewer by the total number of EDUs included in the agreement. The remaining figures on this slide show how we arrive at the net reimbursable amount of $184,000 approximately, and that is the total reimbursable amount if all parcels in the agreement connect to the sewer. And also stipulated in this agreement is the breakdown of reimbursement fee distribution. So this slide shows all the contract parties that contributed to the cost of the sewer main extension. And they are reimbursed whenever a new connection is made based on their, proportionally to their contribution to the construction of this sewer main line. And this is the ordinance language that would be adopted into the municipal code. It outlines the reimbursement fee amount of $37,096.34. It also stipulates the 6% simple interest that is computed from the effective date of the ordinance. And then another point to note here is that the ordinance is valid for a term of 20 years. So once that term ends, the terms of the agreement cease to have their implications. So staff recommends adoption of the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of clarification? I've got a couple, pretty straightforward. Can you put the map back up that had the red and whatnot? And I think you said 14,000 feet, which is what, almost 3 miles? That doesn't look 3 miles to me. How many feet of pipe or sewer are actually being put in? It's like 3 blocks, right?
Yeah, I had the figures in my little notes, but I forgot to print them out.
Okay.
I think it was 1,200 linear feet, I'm being told. I might have gotten it wrong.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I wonder, because, yeah, I live not far, more than 500 feet away, but I live near there, and just, I walk it, and boy, if I'm getting in 3 miles on those walks, I'm pretty happy. So, and this all makes sense. So, just a little bit about the logic of which parcels get included upstream, because the people upstream don't get a choice. It's typically based on the fall. And so the ones in red would help to reimburse the cost proportionally as they hook up, right? That's basically, so first question is, this is fairly common, probably more common 20 years ago in the city. I think even the house I'm in, Chuck DeVivier, one of our former council members, did exactly this, and many houses up had to join in. So it's fairly common, correct? We just don't see it now as often.
Yeah, I think that's correct. It used to be common. I think the last reimbursement district that was recorded was in 2006.
Okay.
So.
And then why the two, because I know that street, when you go all the way up to the end and there's kind of a easement that goes around to the left, you have two included, but then you skip one and then skip the other. Why are those two not included? Are they already hooked up to sewer someplace?
Yeah, I have an additional slide at the end here to explain why those parcels that are not highlighted but adjacent to the sewer. So I think the two parcels you're referring to, I have the box LWWD. Those ones are part of a different sewer district. So this main line was extended from the Cardiff Sanitary Division. And then these parcels are annexed into Leucadia Wastewater District, which is, this is right on the boundary between those two districts.
And they're at the top of the hill, and they could get enough fall to go back across to Whitewood up there in the corner? Is that basically the explanation?
I think that the second part to the explanation is that when they were informed that the sewer extension was going to be occurring, they didn't pursue annexing into the Cardiff Sanitation District, and because of that, they were not part of the district that this sewer line was being extended into at the time of the agreement being made. And that process takes like roughly 4 to 7 months, and it has to do with like...
I didn't think people, like the red parcels, had a choice. I thought they had to, it was based on engineering and fall lines. I thought you had to go in if you were in a certain fall area so that the sewer could drain. Jill, did you want to comment on that, or is that?
I don't know the answer to that. You're right. It is kind of at the top of the hill, so it seems like there are options. And to John's point, that it's right there at the boundary, and it sounds like maybe they felt they'd be better served by the other district, whereas the opposite two thought maybe the newer district would be better.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm fine with it. It just, there were some strange questions, so that's the first time I'd seen that. And the other parcels up there are a more modern development, like the ones across the street. That probably flows over to the opposite side. That was all one subdivision, and the others along Rancho Santa Fe makes sense. So, oh, we do have a
Yes, we do have one public speaker, Randy Lang.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Some of you have been successful in your campaigning recently, so congratulations. I have a few answers on this since I've been working on it for 8 years now. The development has been 7 years. The sewer was only 5. So the properties, I'll answer that question right off the bat here. The 3 properties just to the, I'll just say the north, the top of the page there, they're serviced by the other street further over there. You're aware of that? Okay. Then John had the districts right, that some chose to annex into the district and some did not. But I do think if they get down to it, eventually they're going to have to probably maybe pump to go uphill a little bit. So
that makes sense.
Correct on the topography. So just wanted to touch base with you. I think this is pretty straightforward. It's been a long road. John was finally got us across the finish line. I think we had 3 or 4 different staff members working with us on this for the last few years. But we're excited about it. My wife and I are longtime members of the community here. We're both San Diego Mustangs back in the day. And so it's exciting to be able to see our family property. My father purchased this in, I think like 61, 62, and built a home on it. One of those parcels up there has a home on it, of those 3. And we're excited to move forward with this. So I hope we get a
very good
yes vote. Thank you.
I'll move approval if I can get a second.
Second.
I don't know who was that. So for,
okay. I had my mic on, so it was me. Just kidding.
And And if there's no other comments, we'll call a question. Great. All done.
That takes us to item 10B.
Let's see, item 10B. This is City Council direction on city-owned site located at 634 Quail Gardens Drive, otherwise known as L7, by repealing and replacing resolution number 2023-128 with a finding that the property is necessary for the city's use in utilizing existing zoning regulations or consider rezoning L7 and other city parks. We'll start with a staff report when you're ready.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, council members. I'm Melinda Dacey, the Housing Services Manager in the Development Services Department. With me this evening, I have Patty Anders, Planning Manager for Policy Planning and Housing, and Anna Kolumusi, Interim Development Services Director, and we have Parks and Rec Director with us as well, Dave Knopp. So we'll just start with some background on the prior history of the L7 site. So back in 2023, the City Council provided direction to staff to assess a 100% affordable project on L7 under two scenarios, which would be a 30 to 45 unit development or an upzoning of a housing development with 60 units for senior housing. This was part of a no net loss study session for council's consideration. On June 28th, city staff returned back with the Cosmont contract, which was approved by City Council for real estate advisory services as well as Surplus Lands Act services, and to also initiate the Surplus Lands Act process. On November 8th, 2023, staff returned with the Surplus Lands Act information, and in between those two meetings, staff coordinated with HCD regarding the notice of availability for surplus land. At the November 8th meeting, City Council adopted Resolution 2023-128, declaring L7 as surplus property, and approved the notice of availability to be issued. The notice of availability had a response period from November 21st to January 22nd. And part of that noticing, we had to send that out to 3 open space agencies. City Council, staff returned to City Council on February 14th, 2024 with an update on the Surplus Lands Act notice of availability. The city staff did not receive any responses from that notice of availability period. Staff was directed to move forward with a 100% affordable project consisting of 30 to 45 very low to very low income units, and there were other action items such as robust community outreach, a financial feasibility study, and concept site designs. Staff then returned June 26, 2024 with the financial feasibility and public engagement plan for L7. And council directed staff to move forward with phase 1 of the public engagement plan and convene an affordable housing task force to assess L7 and other sites to accommodate at least 45 affordable housing units. On August 28, 2024, the City Council had initiated an item regarding funding contribution for establishing a park on the L7 site. City Council directed staff to continue the Affordable Housing Task Force and the public engagement plan efforts, and also directed the Parks and Recreation Commission for consideration of L7 as a park. So the Parks and Recreation Commission held 2 meetings in 2024 to discuss L7 as being dedicated as park. During their deliberations, they determined that the site should be dedicated as park land and also noted that an award of naming rights should not be provided and that use amenities or placement of park amenities should also not be determined as well with the funding recommendation. City Council provided direction to staff in December of 2024, and that's why we are here this evening to consider the L7 site for rezoning from residential use to other public, semi-public, or open space type of use and other city parklands. So staff completed an analysis that is included as attachment 4 in the staff report. Of all of the city-owned sites, there are 13 that are parks that are zoned residential, and 1 is zoned as visitor-serving commercial. The existing zoning designations allow park and recreational uses with approval of a major conditional use permit. So in the table on the screen, we are showing the net acreage of the sites, as well as the dwelling unit per acre calculations and the general plan and zoning designations. Based on the net acreage and the dwelling unit per acre calculations, the total dwelling units per acre for the residentially zoned parks is 428 units. This is important as I continue with the presentation and talk through the options that are presented in the staff report. So option 1 for council consideration is to utilize the existing zoning regulations in the municipal code. And part of that process would be to repeal the resolution that was adopted by City Council on November 8th, 2023, which declared the L7 site as surplus land, by adopting resolution number 2025-29, which is attachment 2 in the report. Part of this option would continue the work to establish a park on L7, and part of that process would require the city to issue a request for proposals or an RFP for park design services. City Council would have to designate funding for that effort, and the city would also have to process any required entitlements such as the coastal development permit, a conditional use permit, and also conduct the California Environmental Quality Act determination. Part of the recommendation in option 1 is to also record deed restrictions on this L7 site and other city-owned parks, such as an exclusive use agreement, and also defer naming of L7 until entitlements are complete, as consistent with the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendations, and to also determine at that time that the city does have adequate above moderate housing capacity to make L7 a park. This option could achieve the same outcome and be accomplished more quickly. So option 2 for City Council's consideration is based on the direction that was provided on December 18th. We'd still need to repeal Resolution 2023-128, which declared L7 as surplus, by adopting Resolution number 2025-29. So part of the rezoning process is shown on the screen here, and this is just a high-level kind of step-by-step on the workflow of what would need to be achieved to get to the ultimate end of rezoning the properties. So part of that process is to do a site selection of the city-owned parks that the council would like to be rezoned, as well as identifying sites to accommodate residential capacity. And I'll talk a little bit more about that on the upcoming slides. We would also have to go through Planning Commission regarding the rezoning so that they can provide recommendations to council on any of the discretionary actions that need to be taken for general plan amendments, local coastal program amendments, as well as the CEQA analysis. And then moving from there, City Council would then adopt and introduce the ordinance, resolution adoption, and authorize a ballot initiative. The rezoning process does require a Prop A vote, as I will discuss in a future slide. In addition to the Prop A vote, if the members of the public do support and approve the ballot initiative, staff would then have to return back to City Council to certify the ballot and then adopt the ordinance approving the amendments and the rezoning. However, the work associated with this does constitute a local coastal program amendment and will require submittal to the California Coastal Commission before any rezoning can become in effect. So under option 2, we have some local regulations and state legislation that affect the request for rezoning. So for local regulations, the city has the public vote requirement under Proposition A. And in that Chapter 30 of the Municipal Code, when a parcel is rezoned from a residential use to a non-residential use, the public vote is required. Part of that process requires the ballot initiative and ordinance adoption for the rezoning. The city would have to update our general plan, the zoning map, land use element, and recreation elements, which are also components of the city's local coastal program, which would require the local coastal program amendments and the submittal to the Coastal Commission. And since 2017, the state legislature has been working to strengthen and clarify housing law, as well as increase accountability and enforcement to address California's housing needs. Part of that effort, the state had adopted the Housing Crisis Act, which is SB 330 in 2019. And that law has subsequently been amended on a few occasions. In that law, it specifies that cities that are determined as an affected city are prohibited from taking certain actions that are zoning-related actions, like reducing residential capacity, based on the conditions that were in effect as of January 1st, 2018. Encinitas is an affected city based on HCD's list of affected cities. So that requires a concurrent replacement of residential site capacity. So the 428 units that was depicted in the table earlier would need to be replaced concurrently at the same time with rezoning effort on L7 or other city-owned parks. So in effect, that would require upzoning of other parcels within the city to accommodate that additional 428 residential units. On the December 18th meeting, council had inquired about the upzoning that was done under the housing element to see if that can accommodate the potential upzoning needed for the rezoning effort of the city parks. However, that upzoning was completed to accommodate the city's regional housing needs allocation for the current planning cycle of the housing element. And the city is also obligated to ensure that there's sufficient RENA housing needs allocation capacity throughout the current housing element cycle. So the city cannot utilize the upzoning that was done for the housing element and would need to therefore update other parcels to accommodate the 428 residential units. With that, that concludes staff's presentation, and we are seeking council direction regarding the repeal and replacement of the resolution that declared L7 as surplus land through adopting Resolution 2025-29, and to provide direction to staff on L7 and other city park properties if you wish to choose option 1 or 2 as presented, which are items A and B on the screen. And that concludes my presentation, and we are available to answer any questions.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Thank you for the presentation. Couple of housekeeping items on here in case you missed it. On the consent calendar, we terminated the Kearns and West agreement for stakeholders. Those of you who are worried about the development or the design of a development of houses on that site, that as part of tonight's movement has been canceled. Moving forward, I'm excited to move in this direction. This has been a long project for our citizens and our residents over a very important piece of land we all refer to as L7, but I think in my heart as Quail Gardens Park. And I'm really looking forward to moving this forward. I do have a couple of questions before I make a motion. I'm going to motion it out of the gate tonight because I want to make sure that this gets done. I want to let the residents know that we have myself, the city manager, Parks and Rec staff, as well as other city staff, have discovered approximately $3.1 million of mitigation funds for this park.
So
I'm going to reach. I'll get there.
Well, we're in clarification. We still have public to hear from too, just so you're aware.
So clarification on this, if we move this into the motion, I'd like to ask Parks and Rec Director, what does that look like to make that a public-private movement, and do I need to include that in the motion? When we get to the motion, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the question.
So what I'm going to do when we get to the motion is I want to offer this $3.1 million of mitigation funds, and I want to know when we get to it. And we get to putting the park together. One of the things I'd like to do is I'd like to include the public in the design of the park. I'd like to award them the $3.1 million, and if they go beyond that, I'd like to work on a private-public cooperative effort to design and put the park there that they want to do. So I'm just wondering what that looks like so I can make the appropriate motion once we hear from the public.
Just thinking that through for a second. One piece of information that helps that path, Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Department is working with community leaders, including Ross Ritter and Katie Fox, who serve on commissions, to create an MOU between the city and what is now the Encinitas project, and had other names before, a nonprofit that will, through the MOU, serve the community by fundraising for Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts. And that will come forward, I'm hoping, by the end of March. I'm working on that currently. So at least a path to seek fundraising.
Perfect. I need to know that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, that was my clarification question.
Okay. And Councilmember San Antonio.
First, I'd like to thank Councilmembers O'Hara and Schaefer for their steadfast commitment in this critical issue and keeping their campaign promises. Oh, well, no, I don't have anything to say about that.
Okay. You hold until after. We're going to have public comments next. So, and Deputy Mayor Lyons, any points of clarification or questions?
Yes, I do. There may be something that I was unclear on in the staff briefing on this item, so I would like to make sure I'm clear on it now. Melinda, you were talking about the upzoning. You were talking about it in terms of the rezoning of this parcel, that we would need to address upzoning for an equivalent amount of units, the 428. It's my understanding, and this is where I want to get clarification, that if we go with the deed restriction and the major use permit option, which is option 1, that there wouldn't be that nexus for having to accommodate somewhere else upzoning for 228 units. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
And then I'll continue on that same line. Is that assuming that we are making a finding that we have plenty of above moderate housing, and that's why HCD would hopefully allow it?
Yes, with the work effort to establish the park on the site, so going through the design and construction part of the entitlement approval, we'll need to include in the findings that there's adequate above moderate sites and that the city has met that RENA allocation during this cycle.
Yeah. Any concern with the inclusionary presumption that there would have been 1 or 2? I understand that, but they may find that. I'm just wondering, how would we address the presumption that it would have generated at least one? Out of 7 units, maybe?
That is not a concern at this time. The site inventory for the housing element had indicated 3 above moderate units on the site. I think there's a recommendation that the park would still need to have land space available for those 3 units at a minimum.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. I see, O'Hara, you have a clarification question?
Yeah, just a quick clarification question. Affordable Task Force went and they created a list of sites, of which they included L7. L7 was not the top choice, though, was it?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Thank you. Just a quick clarification as well for the 7th cycle, which is, coming down the pipe here in 2029. So is this going to cause us any issues in 2029 that this one and then any of the ones that we do deed restrict are now open for future housing?
It's unclear in the state law or how the next cycle's allocation will take that into an account. So it's hard to say how that RENA allocation or if any state laws change between now and then, if this effort would be affected in the future.
Yeah, so this is a good first step, but there might be a follow-on step after this, depending on, obviously if we choose option A, just understanding that there's another monster coming in 2029 to have a follow-on effect, whatever that process would be, because I think people would be up in arms if our parks started getting taken down for housing. So, but thank you for all the effort. This is great.
So if there, okay. And we'll go to public speakers. I believe we have.
We have 6 speakers. I'll call you up 3 at a time. First speaker is Stephen Russell, followed by Glenn Johnson, and then Maria Ardance.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. My name is Stephen Russell. I'm the President and CEO of the San Diego Housing Federation. Since 1990, our organization has been dedicated to creating affordable housing opportunities for low-income individuals and families in the San Diego region. Today, I stand here in opposition to the proposed item regarding the city-owned site at 634 Quail Gardens Drive. This proposal, which seeks to repeal Resolution Number 2023-128 and reclassify the property as necessary for the city's use, effectively downzones the site and restricts its potential for affordable housing development. Downzoning this property will significantly reduce the number of housing units that can be produced in Encinitas at a time when our region is facing an unprecedented housing crisis. The San Diego region is in desperate need of more affordable housing. With this action, the city is taking a step backward in addressing this critical need, and this decision will limit the availability of land that could otherwise be used to build housing for low-income families, seniors, and essential workers who are being priced out of our communities. It's important to note that this site was identified as a viable location for housing in the city's housing element. Removing the site from the inventory of available land for housing development without first providing a suitable replacement is a direct violation of the Housing Accountability Act and undermines the city's obligations under state housing law. The Housing Accountability Act was enacted to ensure that cities do not take actions that reduce housing opportunities, and this proposal does exactly that. We believe that this city council may be under the impression that this action asserts local control. However, in reality, this decision could place the city out of compliance with the Housing Accountability Act. This could subject Encinitas to the new and improved builder's remedy, I think you must be familiar with that, which would effectively strip the city of its ability to evaluate and shape potential housing project applications in the future. This is not local control, it is a loss of control. Furthermore, this proposal sets a concerning precedent. If the city moves forward with rezoning L7 and other park properties, it could signal a broader trend of prioritizing non-housing uses over the urgent need for affordable homes. This is not just about one property, it's about the long-term impact on our ability to meet the housing needs of our region. We want to put the City Council on notice that we are closely monitoring this issue. The San Diego Housing Federation, along with the California Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, is aware of this item and its potential to subvert state housing law. HCD has been notified, and we will continue to advocate for compliance with state housing requirements. While I understand the importance of having open space, we have to recognize that housing is a fundamental human need, and you need to strike a balance between preserving parks and addressing this housing crisis. this proposal fails to do so. Again, I will say, this path will lead to greater cost in legal fees, time, and most importantly, potential loss of local control over housing. Let's work together to find solutions that ensure that everyone in Encinitas has a place to call home. Thank you.
Glenn Johnson, Encinitas resident. I think part of the quality of life is having open space and parks. And Encinitas is short on parks right now, very short on park space. I know there are people who would like to see every square foot of Encinitas turned into dwelling units. But this does not provide the kind of quality of life that we've come used to in Encinitas. So L7 is a site that's not within reasonable walking distance of any markets or amenities. It's kind of isolated on a street that's been terribly impacted by housing element sites. I think the city council has a responsibility to provide for all needs, and with the housing element as it's was just approved quite recently, Quail Gardens Drive is impacted, and we need parks for the kids to play in and for people to picnic, and we don't need any traffic. So I would suggest that the city council find a method to protect all of our parks from being cannibalized by the housing developers. Thank you.
Maria? Maria is followed by Oliver Pratt, Jessica Pratt, and Farhad Mahmoudi.
Hello. Okay, so tired of the threats coming from the state. With consistent negative growth rates in California, including Encinitas, SB 330 is a joke, and metaphorically speaking, every California municipality should be fighting back against that. As far as a little statistic for the gentleman, just so he knows, World Population Review says Encinitas is currently declining at a rate of negative 0.63 annually, and its population has decreased by negative 2.49 since the most recent census. Point in fact. Anyway, I'll keep this one short and sweet since you guys, most of you know exactly how I feel about this subject. Over the past year and a half, after the former city council wrongfully and short-sightedly designated Quail Garden Park as surplus land, I have tried to highlight the parkland deficit that this city faces. Based on National Parks and Recreation Association metrics, this city is over 500 acres deficient in parkland. We need to do better for the citizens of the city. Please restore 3634 Quail Gardens Drive, back to parkland in perpetuity and make it usable park space for us. It was purchased for that. That's what it was always intended to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Ehlers and City Council members. Good evening. My name is Oliver Pratt, and I'm excited to see some new pro-park faces up there. I want to thank you for helping me save that little open land that we have left in Encinitas and formally make it L7 into a park. In addition to my efforts, many people in our community have worked really hard for years to get us to this point, and I can't wait for L7 to be a park. I tried to set up my golf ball stand outside this evening in front of City Hall, and I was promptly asked to leave because somebody complained, which is really unfortunate. Like I promised, I'm continuing to sell balls when I'm not at school or playing water polo, still to raise as much money as possible to help build a park. Speaking of, I'm super proud to share that thanks to our community's generosity through my GoFundMe page and golf ball sales, so far we've raised over $15,000. Back in November, I mentioned wanting to find ways to get the community involved in this project and help fund construction. One idea I'm really excited about is a Buy a Brick fundraiser. Families and businesses and individuals could buy bricks engraved with their names, which would be a part of the park forever. And I think it would be an awesome way to honor everybody who's helped made this park happen. Thank you again for listening and supporting our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a little taller, not by much, but all right. That's right, not for long is right. He's going to pass me up. All right, good evening, Mayor Ehlers and City Council members. My name is Jessica Pratt, also known as Oliver's mom. I want to start by expressing my deepest gratitude for all of your leadership and dedication to preserving the L7 property as parkland, just as it was intended to be. This was a huge win for our community. It would be a huge win from our community. It will be a huge win for our community, and it wouldn't have been possible without your commitment to keeping green space a priority in Encinitas. I think it's important to remind to everyone that the park was purchased with park funds for park use and is categorized as parkland in our city's general plan. The people that are about to occupy the over 1,000 units that are being built within a mile of Quail Gardens Drive, many units of which are affordable homes, they also need a park. So my husband JC and I are especially proud of our son Oliver and his sister Eleanor, plus the incredible group of friends who have supported him in this effort. They have spent countless hours finding, cleaning, donating, and selling golf balls to raise funds for the park. Their hard work and determination, along with incredible generosity of our amazing community, has been paramount. It's truly inspiring to see our kids take such an active role in shaping the future of their hometown. While we still have work to do, I am hopeful that with continued support from the city, we'll be able to secure the remaining funds needed to make this park a reality. Thank you, Jim. And this space will serve generations of families, providing a place to play, gather, and connect with nature and each other, which is more valuable now than ever. I think everybody feels that. Again, thank you for listening to the voices of your community and making future decisions in favor of this open space. We are incredibly grateful for your support, and we look forward to working together to bring this park to life. Thank you.
Hi, City Council. My name is Farhad Mahmoudi. I'm a District 4 resident. I'm actually up here tonight. I think a lot of people in this room are pretty excited to see a new park here tonight. I'm excited about that too. I think everybody loves parks. I'm actually here to talk about the two options that we have in front of us should you choose to pass this motion, one of which is a deed restriction option and the other of which is a rezoning option. And I'm here to strongly advocate in favor of the rezoning option, or at the very least to ask for some further clarification from the city attorney in terms of what some of the parameters are around a deed restriction. Now, I'm not an attorney. I just like to pretend I'm an attorney when I'm standing at a podium in front of city council. But my understanding is that a deed restriction is something that in the future could be potentially lifted by another city council. And to me, that seems like you're kind of writing in perpetuity in pencil when you have city councils that have a desk full of erasers in the future, right? And a rezoning is essentially potentially, writing that in stone, because that's something that that future city councils can't change around. I think the second part of it is that we have laws that are meant to guide the process by which we do this, namely Prop A, right? And we've been talking a lot about Proposition A up here at council. And I think it seems to me like the right thing to do and the right process to follow is the by-the-book process here, instead of trying to circumvent or use maybe somewhat of a toothless type measure, such as a deed restriction. So that's all I want to bring to light. I think it'd be awesome if a council member could ask our very patient city attorney to opine on the deed restriction process. But other than that, I hope that we give the residents of Encinitas a voice and assert the chance to assert their local control, as opposed to just council control over locking in these types of preservations of the parks. Thank you very much.
That concludes speakers on this item.
Okay, I'm going to hop in first on this one. First one I wanted to address the first speaker, Mr. Russell, in claiming this is a down zone. It is not a down zone. I mean, if it was, it would require the Prop A vote, unless we go with a down zone, but just calling a deed restriction is not a down zone, and I disagree vehemently with that. In fact, it is maintaining the zoning that is there and the use that it was bought for. And I will repeat, and Jessica said it stole my thunder. This was bought as a park with park funds in 1998 and 99. It is carried as the Quail Gardens park site in our general plan, has been in the plan since 2000 as that. It was a misguided votes by a majority of the council up here. I voted no. I wanted to keep it a park each and every time. I think it's 5 times now I've done that. And so this will be my 6th vote to keep it a park. And the worst part is it's such a poor use of city assets. We would be taking $20 million worth of land, the almost 10 acres, plus having to add $5.9 million, so $26 million in subsidy for up to 45 homes. That subsidy is larger than any other low-income subsidy we've applied for any other low-income units, and it's above the average. In fact, it should cost about half that number according to our housing element. So it's a waste of assets. There are 1,045 housing units going in up and down Quail Gardens Drive, and that means about 150 to 200 lower income units are going to be right down the street from here. So first of all, that far outweighs what we're doing here. Second of all, those people have every right to a park in their neighborhood. And the only park anywhere near this spot is a little pocket park that is already today overcrowded, and almost none of the new housing has been occupied yet. So it's the place where a park was intended. It's a place where we, by jamming all the extra concentration right up and down that road, have made it even more important. And it was a complete mistake to go away from leaving that a park. Plus, it's putting that much more, small increment, but more density right in the place where we've already put 4 major housing element developments. It makes no sense to change it from a park. So obviously, I'm going to be supporting that. So having debunked that, and it is not a rezoning. So. One other thing I wanted to note, when we canceled that contract, we also saved $60,000, right? We had allocated miraculously just under $100,000 what the city manager could, so we spent part of it, but we get to put that $60,000 back in funds, in general fund. Just make sure I got all my points. As far as the couple things, This is obviously we're being threatened. I mean, I have trouble in one breath when somebody says to me, I want to work with you. In second breath, they threaten me with lawsuits and bringing HCD out. And I know they're listening, and you didn't even have to say it. I think we all know this. But, this is one of those fights where I think we are within our rights. that this is a matter of where's the money coming from? This is yet another unfunded state mandate to do this. And like I said, $26 million of subsidy is what these 45 units would require. And because, why? If I give away our city-owned land, I'm going to have to go buy equivalent land somewhere nearby. And if you look, it's running about 15 to $20 million an acre, and even higher in some cases, or $1 to $2 million an acre, and mostly above $2 million. So it would cost $20 million to replace this beautiful parcel that is perfect for a park. I do agree that the deed restriction can be reversed, but this is a case where, do we go through the whole Prop A? My concern about going through a full rezoning is we're going to have to make up, if we do all the parks, 450 housing units. And I think now is not the time to do that. We should talk about that when we get into our next housing cycle and talk about it there. I know we're safe for at least 2 more years and hopefully 4 and don't have people. The other thing I would argue is that what happened this last election, if a council majority comes out trying to take away the park, any park, they're going to suffer the same fate the prior council suffered. And I work for them. I'm going to listen to them very carefully. And so let's not, just because it's permanent, if we rezone, let's not necessarily immediately go down that path tonight. Let's go down that if we consider it later. The deed restriction, we can talk about the pros and cons, but that's my initial opening statement. Thank you. Councilmember O'Hara.
All right. So we are, of course, 500 acres, to your point, short of parkland in the city, which is hard to even say and recognize. HCD recommends dispersing your housing around, you've probably read that, just dispersing your housing around the city, not putting it all on one drive. Within that, we're going to have 1,100 new units. We're going to have at least 600 kids who need a place to go play, adults who want to go and enjoy the outdoors, some quiet time, some space away from the congestion that HCD is causing us to create. This park needs to be there. It was a park to begin with. It got pushed off as surplus land. It should not have. We're going to bring it back as a park. I'm going to move forward with my motion. Again, I want to remind the public, with the help of the city manager, Parks and Rec staff, as well as the staff at the city itself, we were able to secure $3.1 million in mitigation funds. I'm going to make my motion. It's going to be full, so here it comes. I motion staff repeal and replace Resolution 2023128 with finding the property necessary for the city's use by adopting Resolution 202529 titled A Resolution of the City Council and the City of Encinitas, California, repealing Resolution 2023128, which declared the city-owned land on 634 Quail Gardens Drive as surplus land and not necessary for the city's use. I would like to repeal that first. I'd like to follow that up with the motion to establish L7 and other city-owned parks as parks by utilizing existing zone regulations in Chapter 30.09.010 of the Encinitas Municipal Code. Indeed, restrict the properties for park purposes. I'd like to go a step further. I'd like to ask staff to look into collaboration with the city, the residents in the city, to what I would call private-public co-op, to work with Ross Ritter, Katie Fox, and a nonprofit to work on an MOU to get this process moving forward as part of this follow-through. That is my motion. I would like to see this go through, and I'm asking all of my council members to vote with me on this.
Okay. So we have a motion. I've got Councilmember San Antonio.
All right. So I've been following this L7 since it began, and with this nearly 1,100 homes down this corridor experiencing substantial strain, I think our residents need and deserve more open spaces, which are rapidly diminishing. It's our responsibility to protect this invaluable open space and turn it into a park. I fully support this. I guess when I think about this, I go to parks with my kids. I have a 20-month-old and a 20-month-old and a 4-year-old. We go down to Waterfront Park. I mean, parks are a destination for us because we have such young kids. And I feel that, Encinitas is such a family-oriented town or city that we've been to every single park in Encinitas, literally every single park. We look on the map, and I find it on Google, and I find that we're a park. It's not a very big park in our neighborhood, but we go to it. So I fully support this, and I second Jim.
Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the truth is that we need parks and we need affordable housing. And I always envisioned this parcel as both. It's very clear to me that there's a lot of support for the park. It's overwhelming. There's significant community support. So that's I want to note. I think, though, the one thing that I would like to see if there's an opportunity for in this motion is if we move forward with just the motion to address committing this property to a park, then without also identifying how we're going to address affordable housing, then we do so at our peril. I don't want to put us as a city in a situation where we do something that positions us so that we're in threat of something. If we can very easily make a statement to address that. And so I'll propose something based on our strategic planning meetings that we've had as a team with our staff over the last 2 days. I think the timing is really good to bring this forward because it's really relevant to what our motion is here in front of us. What we agreed to in our strategic plan over the last 2 days, and it will be finalized and brought forward very quickly to the full public, but is that we support affordable housing. We see 100% affordable housing as a way for us to have local control. Instead of saying we're going to rely on the market rate housing developers to build it for us, which is what our housing element is. Our housing element says you have to do this percentage of affordable housing with your market rate. If we really want to control affordable housing locally and be the only decision makers behind defining a site and defining where 100% affordable housing will go, then that's local control. We want to be the ones who say where we want it. So it gave me great hope and enthusiasm that the discussion of local control and affordable housing can be won together, that we can look using our Affordable Housing Task Force study as a launching point to look at where other sites make sense for us to consider affordable housing. I know this is a council member initiated item, generated item, so I will defer to Council Member O'Hara, who also made the motion, to his willingness to accept a friendly amendment that would be to add actively looking at and choosing a location for affordable housing and moving 100% affordable housing at the same time so that it will keep us out of peril. It'll keep both our needs for a park on L7 and our needs for affordable housing to move forward. Just looking at my notes to see if I caught everything. I did. I may have another question, but I'll yield the floor now.
Can I just respond to that?
Sure.
I don't wish to change my motion. I'd like to stay on topic. I believe the discussion, we've had this before, where you keep coming back to this being an opportunity that we could have used park and building at the same time. You keep missing the point that this lot could not support that under the 80-20 rule. It was not applicable to do that. So we could never do that. previous council should have known it couldn't have been done on that property. So that was never really an option. I will make this offer to you. I'm sticking with my motion today, but if you'd like to go forward with a council initiated item to identify an area that might be plausible for housing in the future, I would go in with you on that on a separate initiated item if you'd like.
Okay. And thank you. I was going to say the same thing. For those that don't understand, there's a restriction because when we declared it surplus, 80% of it has to be used as housing if we go forward with housing on this lot. So out of the 9 point some odd acres, 80% of it has to be housing. That would mean only 20% could be used for a park. And so that's what I think Jim was referring to. And in our I don't recall any of the goals that we came up with mentioning 100% affordable, that this council has a consensus on 100%, but I'll look for the others to chime in. I personally have expressed this. I oppose doing 100% because it does the opposite of the intent of the law. It concentrates the lower income in one place when we actually want to spread it throughout the city. We don't want to concentrate it on Quail Gardens Drive. We don't want to concentrate it all in one building. And I've been in planning commission where I've actually opposed projects where they tried to put them all in one building, and I know our staff did a great job when Quail Meadows first came and they put it all in one building. You do not want to do that. We want it to be indistinguishable, any lower income housing from the rest of the housing, so there's no stigma associated with it. We want them to be members of our community. So the other note that I think is worth noting here, the other item, is L7 is not part of our adopted housing element. It was not adopted as part of Measure U, correct? And it does not have R30 overlay on it. So it was not part of the upzone.
Mayor, you're correct. It does not have R30. It is identified as a housing element site for above moderate, only 3 above moderate, but it does not have the R30 zoning overlay.
So if somebody goes and sues or goes to HCD, their argument, or HCD's argument with us would be, you're taking away 3 above moderate houses. No lower income housing, right? Isn't that what?
I can't speak for exactly what they would do because we're always surprised.
Well, yes.
I don't want to claim that I think like them. But there are 3 above moderate, so
Yeah.
We do produce and we have an abundance of above moderate, so we feel like we're in good standing with that because of the amount of above moderate that's produced in the city.
But my point is, there's no lower income. There's not even moderate income. It is only above moderate that we have credit for, and we already are exceeding. So any argument based on we are getting rid of low income doesn't hold water when it comes to our current housing element.
That is correct. That's my understanding as well, because it's above moderate.
And in similar fashion, did we take any credit for any of the other parks that are in residential zoning for any low income, moderate income housing units in our housing element?
No, HCD has specific standards on what parcels can qualify as eligible to show that we have enough land that's zoned, and parkland would not be eligible for that.
So in fact, when we talked about declaring this surplus just a year and a half ago, we had already adopted and had a compliant housing element, and this is actually an action that action was completely independent of our housing element certification. And should HCD choose to go after us, and they may choose to do that, they would be doing it, I think, on thin ice, and I think we would have a good argument, and I'm willing to take that bet. I'll yield to Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Okay, thank you. I would like to ask for clarification on what the motion includes. I was a little unsure about the last part of the motion. I know our head of Parks and Rec had kind of teed up a public-private, it's like our parks nonprofit, and was that what the end of the motion tried to capture that the public-private partnership. Could you please reiterate either the record or Councilmember O'Hara?
Sure. So what I said was we basically have this $3.1 million in mitigation funds we want to put towards the park, dedicate to the park. And what I'd like to do, to simplify it, is I'd like to have the city work with the residents and to design the park for the residents around what the residents want. We'll give them a $3.1 million head start. Once you exceed $3.1 million, I'd like to see if the public can fund the extra things they want on this. I believe the public has the want for a park, and they may be willing to get in and create the park of their dreams with some of their help.
So that is different than what I thought you ended up saying. So thanks for the clarification. I'm going to ask our Parks and Rec director, any source of funding for this park was not identified in this agenda item. So any knowledge that you have on what Councilmember O'Hara is talking about as far as where $3.1 million comes from would typically be discussed in a budget conversation. So I feel like I don't have enough information to know what we're taking that money from to say we're going to use it at the park.
I can go ahead and take this one. Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. We did have a report not that long ago from Finance that talked about our mitigation fees, and it talked about how much we have. Speaking with Finance today, as mitigation fees continue to roll in as different projects and things close out, so we currently do have between park acquisition and park development fees, we have $3.1 million. We would need to go ahead and allocate that in a budget meeting, so obviously we do currently have that money. We will be discussing our first budget workshop on March 26th, another one in April. We'll do introduction of the budget in May. We'll finalize in June. So that's where City Council would then need to go ahead and allocate those funds. Also, then we'd have a better idea of possibly how much the mitigation would be at that time as we get closer as well. But that would have to be allocated during a budget meeting.
So we can talk about our intent to do that tonight, and the motion can state that, but the actual action has to occur in a budget session.
Yes, we can go ahead because part of it is we don't have any costs yet for the park. So as the Park and Rec Director and I discussed earlier today, there's a process on how we would design a park and doing an RFP, hiring a consultant. So that money is there. So what would happen is with the first phase of a park development, we would have to come back to council to award the design so that at that point we could allocate some of the park mitigation fees. Then as we progress, you wouldn't likely allocate the other park mitigation fees until you went ahead and probably constructed. And we do have planning commission in between, which is to do the major use permit, the conditional use permit, there's design review, and along the way you've got Park and Rec Commission and council like okaying the design. But definitely, just as the former Park and Rec Director and the last park that was built in the city, we did very extensive outreach to the community, especially the surrounding area. It was Olympus Park, so that would definitely be part of that as well.
Yeah, and just to clarify, my direction is to staff to begin looking into the process of how we could do that and actually look into creating the opportunity for public-private support of this project, just through design or through design and build through the process. And that was the question regarding inclusion of our Parks and Recs Commission and the creation of a MOU with a nonprofit to do that. And so I wasn't asking him to do it, but I'm asking him to be ready and do the research because we haven't piloted a program around the city on a park like this where we've looked to do this specific action.
Yeah, and I think as Director Knopp and I talked about today, he will be bringing back an MOU, correct? As I had said to council, we've seen one or two MOUs since you've now been on council. All our memorandum of understanding have to be approved by council. So that would then outline the partnership that would be with this nonprofit that could then fundraise for several different park projects, including this, if this were to move forward.
And then I'm up. So I wanted to ask one clarifying question. What was the name of the nonprofit group? And do we have a former name so I can connect it with something I know?
Yeah, we did.
It was our friends group. I'm not sure of the name.
PEP.
There we go.
People for Encinitas Parks.
It used to be Patrons for Encinitas. Yeah, when
That's it,
Steve Fitch
Patrons.
founded it. Yeah, okay. I was wondering what this. So it's a 501c3, and they got their start funding McPherson Park. That was just a vacant lot, and that's how they formed, and they've been helping off and on ever since, various different people running it, so great. Question about and I appreciate the explanation of the 3.1 million. I didn't know where that was coming from. So take that a step further. Do we know where that money came from? Did any of that money come from the 4 R30 properties being developed right there along Quail Gardens Drive? And if so, do we have any estimate on how much maybe? I know that's a hard question.
Yeah, we can get that information for you, but I would rely on our financial analyst to give you the details.
Okay. Maybe another question that parallels that would be where we haven't occupied most of those, right? Some haven't even broken ground, but they're about to. And do we know if we will be getting more mitigation funds? And do we have an order of magnitude on, like, let's take Quail Meadows at 448 units right down the street. What kind of dollar amount do you think would be in the mitigation for that?
I would have to take a closer look at that, but we do look at those numbers and anticipate based on when they submit for their building permits. But you are correct that we would be expecting additional funds based on those housing units.
Yeah, and so my point is that 3.1 million, and so if I can make a friendly amendment to your motion and piling on, if we could have one more item that staff go back and determine where the 3.1 came from. In general, big projects, I don't need all the gory detail, but more importantly, as we go forward with the remaining R30, the 4 R30s along Quail Gardens Drive, how much more money approximately could we expect going into that 3.1 million? And we may find we're getting close. And then, so that's my friendly amendment. If the motioner and the seconder will give me a thumbs up, is that okay to add to the motion?
I'll accept that.
Okay, I got 2 yeses, so good. Anybody else wanting to talk? If not, I will call the question.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you. So that was 10B. So now we have 2 informational items. We have none tonight. That's item 11. Item 12, we have 12A and 12B. We have council member initiated items. So, okay, no, that's a good idea. Let's take a 10-minute break. Be back here. 11-minute break. We'll be back here at 8 o'clock. Sorry, I'm just powering through.
I appreciate it.
1 minute warning, 1 minute warning. Hey, I'm running things on time. Okay. Well, I think they already have it, but yeah.
I'll do a follow-up.
We just follow, yeah.
I normally don't.
Do we have IT? Anybody from IT if I wanted to put something up?
Where's Warren?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
I mean, it's not strictly necessary, but I was going to have my report put up. So. Okay, so we're back in session here. And the next item is, perfect, item 12A. And Warren, if I could ask you to bring up the report, the PDF. And this is a council-initiated item by the mayor, me, let me read it. We'll get it up there. Hang on one second. I won't read you the whole report, but what I'm asking for is to put an item on the work plan for the Public Health and Safety Commission with the recent threats to property and life from major wildfires, and I'm primarily focused on major wildfires. In the Palisades and Altadena, they've raised multiple concerns, and I'm getting calls from people and emails from people saying, hey, are we ready? Well, the first step that the city manager and fire chief took is they issued a press release talking about the readiness. And, people said, well, we still want to hear from the mayor. And well, as a mayor, I want to be informed by the public of where your concerns are, and I also want the firefighters, the fire chief and department to have a chance to respond and tell us where we're ready and where we might need to spend money. And so my goal here is to put something and kind of slip it to the top of the work plan for the Public Health and Safety Commission and have them hold the public meetings and delegate this to the Public Health and Safety Commission and rank all the issues that do come up in both likelihood and severity. So you get like a 2-axis chart, and we take the most severe and most likely and address that. And here's the hard part. I'd like it done as quickly as possible because we're headed into the budget cycle, and we adopt a new budget by June 30th, of course, and the new budget starts July 1st. And so I'd like input by early May at the latest, and I'd love it by April, so that, and it doesn't have to be perfectly baked. This is about budgeting, and what we may find out is we have certain issues. Palisades found out that they have pressure problems with water under that kind of condition up in higher areas, and there may be certain equipment we might have to budget for. So I'd like to have an informed report and survey. And then I'd like this done under the purview of the Public Health and Safety Commission, but also invite the Alevenheim Fire Safe Council, because quite frankly, they've been working on this for about, a year or two. And so I thought I'd bring it to the council to see if you support giving Public Health and Safety Commission some quick direction. The other thing I'll say, I'll go one step further, because Public Health and Safety Commission will be giving us a work plan for next year. And when the council formed the Public Health and Safety Commission, we didn't really give them a purview per se. And I objected to it, but I lost that vote. And so I believe this is my first step in trying to set direction and give them purpose. My belief is the primary purview of the Public Health and Safety Commission, we should tie to the general plan, the public safety element, and say anything having to do with that is yours to go after, and you should, comment and advise us on that. So with that, you've read the report, and I will go and recognize Councilmember O'Hara.
Real quick, we have public speakers, yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot about the public speakers. Do you questions or clarification first? Any?
Nope, nice job.
Okay. No? So we'll go to public speakers then.
We have
Sorry about that.
5
Thank you.
speakers on this item. First 3 speakers, Natalie Satoon, followed by Ron Medak, and then Jessica Pratt.
Thank you. Hi, Natalie Satoon, Cardiff. I have some photos that were taken last Friday of Rossini Canyon. So I am here concerning this item. I have concerns outside of just sending this to the Public Health and Safety Commission. So I would actually like to ask for reconsideration of fire safety standards here in Encinitas. When we saw the LA fires and the safety standards by the City of LA, it's an example of what doesn't work for us. Most of us have had increased premiums and threat of cancellation of policies because there is an incongruency between the California state safety standards and insurance carriers. These were photos taken of Senator Blake Spear's property that was inspected in April of 2024. This is deemed safe. All of these are safe by our city standards. There are 5 acres with homes lining each ridge of the canyon. I am getting to the bottom of who believes this is actually safe, but whoever it is, they need a reality check. So we do need to reassess our own standards. And now we know that fires can blow all the way over to the coast, and we have lane dieted and narrowed down our travel lanes so much that trying to get through Encinitas on a normal day is a challenge. I can't imagine trying to evacuate. You know, mine is Santa Fe. I'm here all the time. Can you imagine trying to evacuate Santa Fe and SDA at the same time? What will happen if we have to evacuate a large-scale fire event? With all of the development and newly narrowed roads, we're at a terrible disadvantage. So I'm asking that this council consider, on top of just narrowing the scope, which desperately needs to be done, of our Public Health and Safety Commission, I am asking that we consider hiring a consultant possibly outside of the state of California, since we know that the California fire safety standards fail. I'm not a fan of consultants, but especially with tax dollars leaving our community and our state. But in this case, we probably need an unbiased opinion and recommendation from an entity with a successful fire mitigation rate. And I would not consider this an expense. I would consider this an actual investment of life and property for our town. Thank you.
Sorry. Good evening, Council. My name is Ron Medak. I live in Olivenhain, and I want to speak to fire in Olivenhain. And in particular, I should mention, I'm on the board of the Olivenhain Fire Safe Council, and I'm not speaking for the board. I'm speaking as a private citizen completely, and actually a project that the Fire Safe Council has not been involved in. But I think I can say on behalf of my neighborhood that we welcome this proposal. My neighborhood is located it's Brookside, which is Brookside Lanes, 20 units or 20 houses. That little red and white bullseye over there shows you where it is in Encinitas. So with the ocean at the top, we're down there. It's about 6 miles from the coast. To the right, you can see it's kind of hard to walk over there. I wish I had a pointer. But the community is located to the side on the right, that strip that comes down. Below, at the very end of the street is where my home is located, and below me is Escondido Creek. Next slide. I'm not going to bother you with the text. We'll just go through the pictures. This shows the neighborhood once again. It goes above the top of these two red delineated areas. So we have a special situation on Brookside. We're 20 homes, most of the lots are about a half acre. But when the area was developed, there were a total of 58 acres that were could not be built upon. And the city of Encinitas developed an easement that would be open space and remain open space, could not be developed. But the properties themselves were attached to two of the residents on the street. The one on the left is the Fontana property. That area is about 6.5 acres. The one on the right is the Swans property. It's over 50 acres. So we have a total of 58 acres of riparian habitat in Encinitas that's extremely valuable ecologically, but it's also a fire hazard. And we needed to do something about that. The HOA on our street asked me if I would take on responsibility of working up a plan for working for fire prevention. They knew that I had a special interest in that. So for many years, because many years ago, about 10 years ago, I proposed that we cut down the weeds along the residences that are on the side where the creek is, up to 100 feet from each resident. We've been doing that with our own money for about $4,500 each year.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to get very far. This is very valuable information.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if there's anybody who wants to contribute 3 minutes off the top of there. We have a lady back there. Is that okay?
I'm okay with that. We have light. We have how many speakers on this? 5, yeah, so that makes equivalent of 6. So who is it, Natalie, were you going to, or, yeah. Do they need to come up and fill out a slip? Oh, 3 more minutes and that's it.
Okay, I'm sorry, because I didn't think I'd be speaking tonight, but so it's just extempore. So anyway, to make a very long story short, we developed a plan where we've each year been cutting down about the $4,500 worth of weeds that are up to 100 feet. But 2 years ago, we stepped it up, and we've spent about $12,000 cutting down about 25 palm trees so far. But then we're starting to run out of money. We contacted a botanist from the Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department, who has a program for private landowners. In the fall of this year, we worked together with him. His name is Jonathan Snap Cook. He's a local gentleman from the Willow Spring area.
I don't think you need to explain the whole detail tonight, because this is just giving them a task. So, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to finish it up then. He helped us get a grant for $25,000, which we're going to be spending this year. We've identified invasive plants, palm trees, eucalyptus, arundo, castor bean, etc. And this is a very high fire area. If we go forward, that's some of the wildlife we have. It's incredible wildlife in that area. This is designated by CAL FIRE as extreme high fire area, and if you should all know, the Fitch report, we're the spearhead for the fire that would probably come from the east. Yep. So I'm not asking for anything. This is strictly FYI. Thank you very much for putting up with me.
And of course, my reason for delegating it to the Public Health and Safety Commission is so they can hear it and digest all this and then give us the Reader's Digest version.
Following Jessica Pratt will be Molly Hentleyan and then James Morton.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Pratt, as you know. I'd love to direct your attention to the image that is on the screen. On Monday of this week, 2/26, at approximately 3 p.m., that vehicle's engine exploded while in the driveway of a private residence located directly above the L7 parcel off Quail Gardens Drive. The explosion caused a large fire, producing tremendous flames and huge plumes of toxic black smoke, and the farm lab property had to immediately relocate all of the children indoors due to poor air quality, my 8-year-old daughter Eleanor included. Had our absolutely amazing Encinitas Fire Department not responded as quickly as they did to extinguish that fire, The surrounding neighborhoods, mine included, Encinitas Ranch, would have been in serious trouble. Thank you to our wonderful fire chief and my friend, Josh Gordon. Is he still here? Now, imagine an unexpected explosive fire erupted in that very densely populated, tree-filled area where nearly 1,000 housing units are packed with residents. This is our future, right? 1,000 units packed with residents and their multiple vehicles. Imagine what that might look like if this were to happen again, because this is plausible. If an emergency occurred, Encinitas Ranch and the surrounding neighborhoods would need to evacuate. And if I needed to evacuate my family, my young children, I'm sincerely afraid that we would be stuck in traffic just trying to exit our neighborhood. It would be the Pacific Palisades bulldozing cars, people running for their lives situation. Please put a stop to the irresponsibly high density overdevelopment projects in Encinitas that your predecessors so graciously left for you. And I kindly ask that you revisit our city's fire safety standards. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Molly Hitley in District 2. I support this initiative, 12A, but I have comments about the Public Health and Safety Commission as a team. This past week, I attended the meeting because I wanted to both understand the commission role and learn more about the people who are the commissioners. I commend both new commissioners, Harriet Selden and Steve C., for being able to jump right in. It was evident they had meaningful input. But my main takeaway was this commission needs very specific direction, like 12A. And the prior members, when they were doing their roundtable, each stated that they needed direction and had asked for it from the prior council and never received. To that, I would like to highlight what I witnessed. They were presenting their strategic work plan, and their focus was so broad, trying to cover so many areas, it's just not achievable. The commission stated that since they only meet once a month, it is hard to accomplish items. So it was clear to me they're trying to accomplish what the council's trying to accomplish, what the staff's trying to accomplish on a very broad scale, which is just not realistic. I would like to ask the council, in addition to 12A, that when reviewing their strategic goals, that the strategic outline gets parsed down and remove areas that are not relevant or achievable due to their resources. My concern is that they are burning up city staff resources on projects that are not a priority to the residents. So 12A is a perfect project for them, and we want them to be successful. I would also like to note that many of the items on their strategic plan were all carryovers from 2023 and 2024. So in effect, they haven't really enacted anything. So I feel for them, and I want them to be successful, but I also think that this project is huge, and they may need to meet more than once a week. So thank you.
Once a week or once a month?
Oh, yeah, sorry, once a month.
you.
Thank you.
They meet once a quarter, but they have special meetings too.
Good evening, Council. My name is James Morton, and it's my pleasure to serve as the head of the Public Health and Safety Commission. Happy to be here. Thank you very much, Molly. I'll say thank you for our new commissioners. They were obviously fantastic candidates. The cream rose to the top, I think. Really enjoyed having them and looking forward to their contribution. Thank you very much for that. During the selection process, I heard a phrase that I heard a year ago. And that phrase was, it's a commission that's trying to find itself. That led me to query the council, the commission members. What do you feel have been hurdles to our commission? And the previous members all agreed on these points. They agreed on, we meet quarterly, we need to meet more frequently, and we were given the guidance that we are smart people and they'll figure it out. Right? We are tasked with presenting you a work plan. We present you a work plan, and you feedback what from that work plan is important. Right? So we don't select what we do, right? We've been offering ideas of what we like to work on, and we turn to you for direction. So, in light of this initiative, it's exciting to see a test case, right? The test case is, what's it look like if we do opposite of what we've been doing for the last year? And I encourage you to look at the results of what we do. Everyone that I've talked to individually are passionate. They want to do a good job. They want to feel like they're contributing. And I believe will embrace wholeheartedly what you're asking them to do. We will do a good job. There will be room for improvement. A catchphrase I've become really sort of equipped with is, I'm worth what you pay me, right? And there's always room for improvement on that. So I pledge that we'll try to listen to the best of our ability. We'll take our professional resources and experience, try to apply it in the city, and come back, and really try to interpret the impression that you've given. So again, just to highlight, we're really looking to see as a test case for what it looks like if we meet more regularly than quarterly, and what we deliver if we're given clear direction. So thank you very much for your time.
That concludes speakers on this item.
Excellent. We'll go with Councilmember O'Hara.
I'm really happy to see this come forward. I appreciate members of the commission coming out and attending the meeting. I want to follow up Commissioner Medak on the Traffic Commission, but I've been to the Escondido Creek property on a fire tour, and it is a powder keg. So you're absolutely right. If nobody's been out there and they want to get the scope of what our residents and fire department and sheriff's department are looking at, that is a great example. Commissioner Morton, I appreciate you coming over, appreciate your words. I believe you are worth more than we pay you for, what we pay you. I believe you all are. And I believe it is up to you to show it, and you want to show it. And that's why we've put this group of people there to do this. So I'm going to hold you accountable to more than what we pay you, because I know you can do better. You can, not better, I know you can meet that challenge. Fair? All right. So I'm not going to dive too deep in this. I think it's a great step in the direction. It might have been me who mentioned that this commission was looking for some direction. I think this is a great start, and we can go a lot of directions from here. I want to add one thing to this, Bruce, if you don't mind, on the guiding principles. Where you have EFD and the fire department mentioned, I'd like to add the sheriff's department to that too, because I think a lot of the issues are going to require the incorporation of the sheriff's department to come up with solid solutions.
Absolutely.
I yield. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Lyons.
I don't see it really explicitly in the recommendation, but maybe it's intended. One of the things that I would like to consider today, if my colleagues here are willing to consider, is that we recommend that the commission meet on a monthly basis. I do understand the concern. There's hardly much you can get done in meeting quarterly, and that in itself is a barrier to moving forward. I think one of the things we're coming to terms with, we're realizing is that the Public Health and Safety Commission has a lot to offer, and we've kind of explored a little bit over the first year or so. But this is a great opportunity to add to their work plan to specifically tackle this very, very important issue for our community. So I'm very much in support, and there hasn't been a motion made yet. I'll yield the floor, but I did want to say that I do support meeting monthly.
Cool. Councilmember San Antonio.
Thank you, Mayor Ehlers, for initiating this action item. Our constituents are definitely concerned about wildfire preparedness. Just with the Palisades alone, that should be a big wake-up call for all the cities that have these kind of fire dangers, fire load. I am a District 4 representative. I know that in our area where I live, I'm right next. My house butts up right against the Escondido Creek. Ron's house is right across. I can almost see his house across from my house. That is definitely a concern over there. But as you move, as you can see from the Palisades, it's also a danger anywhere. That could happen anywhere in our city. Nally mentioned where that area she lives by. I mean, it's the same thing. It's a fire risk. I do like that you have included Leavenhain Fire Safe Council as well as the fire department in this with the Public Health and Safety Commission. So I definitely support this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Schaefer.
Thank you, Mayor Ehlers. The fact of the matter is I've been talking about this since the the Camino Apartments, that this is, a timely, maybe a little late because, we had to wait till deaths and 10,000 structures have burned down for us to do this. And it's a severe problem with humanity. And I think it's just it's an arrogance, really. But I think that we need to go all the way through to traffic, what it looks like in a not ideal situation. Like really study the traffic, departures that took place in the Pacific Palisades. I can't say it enough. Most of my training in my life started after people messed themselves. And I don't think you realize that when something like this happens, people are not thinking clearly. I have video after video I used to show in Quantico to Marines training, showing them what it looks like when people are panicking, and people will literally run in circles following each other, not going to the right places. And if you put that with vehicles, with horses behind them, with all types of issues, that one turned over vehicle is going to turn this place into a disaster. And the city was designed, not very efficiently in that regard. So I think that we need to take this into the entirety of what this looks like in a compound emergency, not just a simple emergency. And talking to the fire guys, that right now a lot of the stuff that, and I don't know if people realize this, but we have fire retardant houses or fireproof, if you will, substances. But the problem is those are good for a single fire or single structure. The second that those materials go, the fire now burns hotter because their flash point is so much higher. So we're sitting at a point where we have these houses and we create these situations where we think we're living in this safe environment. And I said this already on multiple different occasions, but at the rate that we're losing insurers and their entire job is to assess danger, that tells me 100% that we have the highest level of dangers. This isn't people that are applying for insurance the first time. These are people that had it, they've spent money into it, and now they're losing all that money that they've already spent into it because the insurers are just walking away. So I think that we need to, I want to see where we have emergencies, and there might be a point where we need to declare an emergency of where we are at a state in our city. I want to take us as far as we can go, as I want to see. And if you want direction, that is my personal direction, and if you need that.
Okay, and I'll hop in again. I will be making a motion. I want to cover a few things. I want to limit this. There are plenty of disasters we could look at, but I want to look at major conflagrations that are fire-oriented coming to Encinitas or in Encinitas. And this is where, and I think you hit it right on the nose, where it's a compound disaster, where it's so big. And that's why I drew the parallel with Palisades. That's what's on everybody's mind. And that wasn't just a simple canyon fire. That was a major fire front where they couldn't get in front of it. I also attached a YouTube video because the other night I happened to be watching, and it was a movie from 1962. 60 years ago. And it was a story of the Bel Air and Brentwood conflagration, where it did almost the same thing, almost in the same place as the Palisades. And if you have a half hour, it's narrated by William Conrad of Canon fame, and it's really well done, but it's a documentary. And they show how they can't get in front of with all the fire department in LA in 1962 coming out, all the neighboring cities sending their engines. They couldn't get in front of the flame front, and it burned almost to the ocean, not quite. They even show that the water ran out at the top of the hills and all the higher elevations. And they have a graphic in there showing it, and they talk about it multiple times. So the parallels are uncanny. And so what I'm trying to do with this is, for the most severe and the most likely fire events, that's where I want the focus, so we can figure out, is there some capital or money, or what, do we need to put our money where our mouth is to help mitigate that? And anything from evacuation to hydrant location to, do we have enough reserve water locations, pools, whatever. I don't know the answers. I want to find out where the concerns are. I want Public Health and Safety Commission to do that. So I did want to comment on the Escondido Creek, because it's another one. I used to hike down there all the time, and you'd hike down behind Ron's house, and it was pretty open underneath the canopy. It isn't now. It is, you talk about the fire ladder from the ground brush all the way up through the mid, all the way up to those eucalyptus. Those things are 35 feet tall. That is going to be one heck of a fire if it ever comes down, and it's almost when it comes down. So we need to mitigate vegetation too. You know, as bad as the Rossini Canyon looked, this is worse, in my opinion, my amateur opinion. So I'm going to put a plug in. I think the city manager may have a similar plug. March 3rd, is it, Ron? The Alevinheim Town Council and the Alevinheim Fire Safe Council kind of stole my thunder, and they're having a seminar with the fire department and a few other agencies, CAL FIRE, and at the Alevinheim Town Hall. You can find it online, RSVP to it, but it's also going to be broadcast too. So anybody out in that area, or anybody in Encinitas, may want to watch that. You had a plug?
I did want to have an update for mayor and council members. Due to probably like the shift in this council-initiated item, and really looking at what departments best serve public health and safety, we're going to be transitioning this commission over to Chief Gordon in the fire department. So it started in city manager's office. It was brand new. Chief Gordon and I have spoken, and we feel that this is the best location for the Public Health and Safety Commission. So definitely want to thank Assistant to City Manager Lois Yum for all of her work on that. We will look to transition. So Lois will stay on a bit, and we look like it will transition to one of Josh's staff, but he will oversight this commission going forward. So I did want to just go ahead and give an update.
Okay, and we talked a little bit about frequency of meetings. For this item, for this topic, you should meet as often and quickly and multiple times. We're trying to get it done by early May. Did I say early May? I meant early April. Well, yeah, April, February would be great, but that might be a bit much. But as far as your work plan, I should say your work, the Public Health and Safety Commission work plan, it will be coming back to us, and I think that's the appropriate time to help them with and I would look for any advice to update your frequency, and we're supportive, I'm sure. But as far as this motion, I would move that we give the task as outlined in my memo to the Public Health and Safety Commission, ask for results as soon as possible, but no later than early May, in order to inform our budget cycle. I do like the idea of adding the sheriff explicitly as one of the departments in item number 4 and 5. And so let's see, any other? So that's my motion. If I can get a second.
Quickly, I do like the idea, and I support the concept of keeping this directed at fire issues.
Major fire issues.
Major fire issues, sorry. I also follow with the notion I've heard Councilmember Schaefer mention, which is the likelihood of earthquake, the likelihood of, at the coast, at least tsunami. I would like to see them in the future follow through with plans on those that they can overlay on the fire to find out where the pinch points are and have an overall, in case both things happen, or if there's a need to know what's going to go on, where those plans might need to be addressed collectively at times. Going forward, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and could that be on the work plan? The
Yeah.
future work plan item coming up in the next month or two?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Additionally, reading on here, public meetings. During our strategic planning, we talked about communication at City Hall and ways to better our communication with the public. And so I would like to see these meetings occur not just at City Hall with the public. I'd like to see us identify points of contact, whether it be PTAs, whether it be at fire stations, if that's a place we think people want to go to talk about this topic. I think public outreach needs to be us outreaching to them on this at times. Obviously having meetings through city chambers as well. But I'd like to see our public outreach be effective in this project. And I think that means going to where the people who are concerned about fires live.
Yep. I would agree to add that verbiage to the motion. Yeah, I think the March 3rd meeting that I talked about falls in that category if that's not too fast.
And I will second your motion then, and I'll yield the floor to Councilmember Schaefer.
Yep.
Yeah, so he hit it on the earthquake. I just want to make sure that we don't look past the fact that we keep talking about how we come past drought years, and I think that we forget that we live in a desert, right? And a desert is defined by precipitation per year. We can keep calling it droughts, but the fact is we live in a desert. I sit on the water boards. That's some of the commissions I sit on, and we have some water, but the fact is we keep referring to the time that we don't have water. So these things aren't going to happen. They usually happen when we're already low, which is what happened in Palisades, right? It was a combination of all of those factors. Yeah. And so if we're already sitting with that, with the combining of, again, more residents, more people, that can be a compounding emergency in and of itself. So don't overlook that, please. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, I will call a question.
Motion carries unanimously.
And I thank you, and we'll move on to 12B. So is it, which one of you two is
I'll do it.
going to present? Okay.
Real dumb. Okay, I'll just read it. At this point, I think everybody's seen the writing on the wall from the last couple of meetings, but in particular, seeing with what seems pretty aggressive state overreach. I'm just going to read the introduction of the concept, right? As a city council candidate, I committed to policies that would balance community character with responsible growth. However, state mandates prioritize rapid expansion with little regard to local control, leaving communities with limited authority over large-scale developments that will negatively impact the public safety, which we just got done talking about, and neighborhood conditions. I also find it appalling that an attorney for the most significant development in our city's history would say there is, quote, nothing you can do about it at a public hearing. I believe it's important to review our Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, housing numbers, and regional housing needs allocation, RENA, in order to avoid overburdening our communities with excessive growth that will impact our safety and quality of life. Right, the background. The Regional Housing Needs Allocation, RENA, is a state-mandated process that determines each region's housing needs based on projected population, household growth every 8 years. SANDAG, the regional planning agency, distributes this housing allocation to local jurisdictions using job proximity and transit access as factors. However, California has been experiencing significant domestic migration losses, with more residents leaving the state than any other in recent history. This demographic shifts declining birth rates, and lower international migration have contributed to the state losing congressional representation. So we have less congressional representatives now because specifically of our loss of housing numbers. Series 15, regional forecast by Sandag, shows all of this. The contrast of the vacancy rates are up by 20%. This is for 2022 to 2050. They project that the housing vacancies will be up by 20.5%. Persons in houses will be down by 8.5%. Total households will be up 6%. Total housing units will be up by almost 8%. And the total population will be down almost by 2.7%. So they have conflicting numbers within their own right. And I know that in 2024, just at the very end of the year, Sandag has written to the Honorable Chris Ward and Nancy Skinner, trying to get these numbers redone. And tonight, this is us attempting to get this going immediately. They've committed to it at the end of last year, but since then there's been new board members, there's been new elections, and for us, and this would be for you, Bruce, as you go to Sandag, to start wrangling in as many of the cities that we can to make sure that Sandag is steadfast to this and making sure that we get this done. So the direction to staff would be to direct staff to put together a letter or proclamation asking Sandag to request an update growth projection adjustment. A sample letter is included. It's in the back here. We want staff to put together a letter or proclamation asking our state Senator Catherine Blakespear and Assemblymember Tasha Bronner to request HCD to do the same. So Sandag needs to do it, and HCD needs to do it, and that's our request at this point. So I'll yield at this point.
Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward.
And we do have speakers if you want to go.
Oh, yes,
It's
speakers.
up to you. Anybody need a question answered ahead of time, or do you want to?
Wanted to read the letter as part of the initiated item.
Why don't you do that as that's part of the clarification? That's good.
Correct.
And then if.
So I'm going to read the letter. We've asked Sandag to, all the board members of Sandag to sign a letter. The representative and the senator to also sign the letter. And the letter reads as follow. I will paraphrase a few places to keep it from getting too long, but we, the undersigned board members of Sandag, submit this formal petition for your review and action on the regional housing needs allocation provided in recent state housing reports, specifically those concerning population projections and associated housing requirements. The undersigned believes that the current housing allocation figures are inaccurate and misleading due to the following reasons: population decline, inaccurate projections and misinformation, community impact, request for review and recalculation. In light of the above and recent consensus and reduction in state of representatives, we respectfully request the California Housing Community Development Agency, in collaboration with relevant state and local agencies, revisit the housing need determinations and recalibrate projections to more accurately reflect the current population trends and realistic future demand. Our requests: 1, a thorough review of the current population data and housing demand projections used to justify statewide housing numbers. 2, the recalculation of regional housing needs on verified, accurate, and up-to-date demographic data. 3, transparency in the methods and data sources used in the housing needs assessment. 4, a community feedback process that incorporates the voices and concerns of impacted residents in the decision-making process. 5, we urge that HCD to take these concerns seriously and begin a transparent and data-driven review of the housing allocation process, RHNA, to ensure that future housing plans reflect actual needs rather than speculative forecasts. We thank you for your attention in this important matter. The undersigned.
Okay, if there are no other clarification, let's take our public speakers.
There are 2 speakers on this item. First speaker is Maria Ardance, followed by Ellen Burr.
Hello. So I strongly express my support for this item. I would ask that it's effective immediately. I don't know if it's like next element cycle or whatever, but hopefully it would be immediate. And obviously it relates to our previous item. So I have shared these statistics with the previous council, and I want to share them with you again. I like statistics. U.S. Census data says 2010 population in Encinitas was 59,818. Then the population in 2020 went up to 62,001. Then, however, in July of 2023, population estimates went down to 60,841. So our population is decreasing, like you've obviously said. Looking at our 13-year snapshot, again, we've only grown by 1,323 people in 13 years. I mean, that's absolutely an insane number for our projections that we had received for our housing element of 11% growth per year for like 20 or 30 years. It's just nonsense, which we all know at this point. As I mentioned earlier, World Population Review described us having a negative growth rate. Encinitas is currently declining at a negative rate and has decreased 2.49% since the most recent census. We all know this needs to get done, so I almost don't want to beat a dead horse at this point. But, I really want to stress, though, that this really has to do with an imminent threat that we're facing in our city, and I really want you guys to explore that imminent threat. I was reviewing in 2020, the city of Carlsbad had actually written a letter to the housing, to HCD, trying to get a moratorium on their building, and HCD said, no, it's not going to happen. I'm summarizing this. And, so I went through the whole letter, and they went through what would actually qualify. And it says, among other things, the legislature suspends the ability of cities and counties to impose moratoria on housing development, including mixed-use developments, other than to specifically protect against imminent threat to health and safety of persons residing in or within the immediate vicinity of the area subject to the moratorium. We have an imminent threat: fire, safety, sewer, like our infrastructure, but more than anything, like the fire threat that we have. Yes, I think you know where I'm going with this. I just want you to really focus in on that. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I think you guys summed it up perfectly, but please do look into imminent threat, because we're at that point. We are at an imminent threat. Thank you.
Lies, damned lies, and statistics. Not sure who gets credit for that, Disraeli or Mark Twain. I would like to commend Attorney Marco for sending in the letter that had the link to 15, but he didn't go far enough. He didn't put in the information that came in the end of August, which goes through. And I don't know that you're going to get anything newer than the end of this past August as far as updates through 2050. And it's a variation of what she said, but it's true. But I don't think you're going to, I agree with most of your letter, but a lot of it is, I don't think we're not going to get a moratorium unless there is a fire, maybe, and that may be the only way. But for the next round, we need to be prepared and have it done. And to ask HCD to provide us with, first of all, Sandag gets their information for the most part from HCD and other California offices. So to ask HCD for more information, it's kind of like asking the fox to guard the hen house. We need more transparency about what that data is and where it comes from. And that is what you should really be pounding on. And I don't know that Blake Spear or Berner can help with that. But, there's a phrase, garbage in, garbage out. Well, we need to figure out where that garbage is coming from and make sure it doesn't go through and come out even stinkier garbage. And it doesn't take much to mess things up. I mean, Del Mar, employment numbers, they counted all, on a quarterly basis, they counted all the guys that work at the Del Mar racetrack, okay? So it was 4 times the guys that were there, but they are only part-time and temporary, okay? In our own little city, I don't know that it's come up yet, but the gym that's next to Vaughn's on Santa Fe, and information that we have that our city has used, they have over 600 employees. I don't know. So we need to know exactly where the information is coming from and who's developing it. And that is what you can use to go back at them, because otherwise you're just getting regurgitated stuff that's passed down from group to group. So I would think of some rewrites on the letter, but other than that, good luck.
That concludes speakers on this item.
Okay, and we will start with Deputy Mayor Lyons.
Thank you. So as I was beginning to say, I support this idea. Again, I agree with Ellen, and thank you for your comments, because I was going to say some similar things. And one is I want to point out that I think we're all aware of how cities have been challenged with getting any attention when talking about RHNA reform. So I want to know that as a reality. And in terms of that, in order to support this, I would like us to make sure we've done our homework, and I like a lot of what's being proposed as far as the language, but I'd also like to have an opportunity to evaluate some other opportunities that could be included. The mayor and I have a meeting on our calendar, which was interesting because it kind of coincided at the same time because of the Brown Act. We can only Brown Act buddy with one other person. So the mayor and I were already Brown Act buddied, and apparently these two were already Brown Act buddied with the same idea in mind. And what the mayor and I were going to talk about is the Sandag letter that was referenced that came out of the Sustainable Communities Working Group. And I think it's a really powerful letter, and some of the suggestions that it has. It was sent from Sandag at the end of 2024 from the chair of Sandag. It came up through the Sustainable Communities Working Group, which I chair. And it is addressed to the chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee and also the chair of the Senate Housing Committee. There are some powerful statements in here that are extremely powerful coming from Sandag, who's the agency entrusted in being given the RHNA numbers from the state. So, for example, there's an idea, I'm just going to use this to kind of shed a light on the types of ideas that are listed. I had the city manager send this to all city council leaders so that everyone would know what this says, and it is a public document. And for example, one of the things I heard sitting in the committee meeting where we have representatives from every city around the region, I heard some cities say they're okay with more housing. They would like to have more housing. They would take more housing as long as the state would give them credit for it. And they have their own vision and they have their own mission for their cities. And theirs includes housing. And so they're like, we would accept it if HCD, if the state would give us the credit we would want, and a lot of times that comes with funding, so there's a good reason for them saying we want that credit, we want that funding. And that would then provide some opportunities for other cities in the region who don't have as good infrastructure or don't have as good of a land use setting to accommodate the housing as they do, to be able to share, and so it'd be more of a regional goal instead of a city-by-city goal, which everyone I've ever talked to about that says that makes a lot of sense. There's cities that have that infrastructure already, and they're okay with going a little denser, and that works for them. It's this, instead of applying the same rules to every single city, have the flexibility associated with being able to meet regional goals instead of city goals. That's a good example of what's in the letter. And at the same time, the Cal Cities, which is a statewide organization that our mayor was speaking about recently, actually, was at strategic planning. They are a statewide organization that has representatives from every city, or about 98% of the cities in the state. They have all, about a year and a half ago, they agreed to ask HCD for an audit. How do you come up with the RENA numbers? And they're in the process of getting some information on that. Their legislative lobbyist is Jason Ryan. And I think it might be wise for us, or it could be beneficial for our letter, to find out where Cal's Cities is on their audit, what information can be shared, so that we can put forward a few comments that HCD, that the state has already heard, that we support those. And I think that begins to show that we've done our homework, we're aligned with some other people they've heard from, and it could be a more powerful letter. So that was a long way to say, I think if we had a little bit of time to have some input to edit, it might be a valuable, it might be valuable to the process. And that was my statement on that.
Okay, Councilmember O'Hara, have we gone around once yet, or anybody? Because I see Councilmember San Antonio, if would be okay. So if I can recognize Councilmember San Antonio, if he'd like to go, and then we'll come back to you.
Well, I just want to say that I do support this initiative. To me, it makes sense. It is crucial that we do get those numbers, the correct numbers. It makes sense to me. We're making these huge decisions or things that impact our city with the wrong information. So I do understand that much. To what Ellen said, that makes a lot of sense as well. That maybe the numbers are skewed. So as far as I guess as far as I'm concerned, I still do support it, but the numbers do have to be at least, and I don't know if these numbers are incorrect. I just it just made good food for thought, I guess, what Ellen said. But I do hope that Senator Blake Spirit and Assemblywoman Borner do get on board. They're from here, and I would expect that they'd be supporting from their own town. So, but thank you for addressing it.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Yeah, I think this is an action forward item. We can wait for Sandag. We've been waiting for them forever. By the time when they come around to town, the ship might sink. So if we don't press the button and make things start going, it's going to fall to us. And I don't, that's not why we're here. That's not our job and our responsibility to our residents. This letter, it's not just a letter from Encinitas. It's not just to Sandag. It's to the other cities in this county that are thinking the same thing we're thinking, but they haven't written the letter yet. It's for them to say, oh, here's a letter. We can do the same thing. We can email this to all the mayors and ask them to do the same. We can do a lot. This is not just a letter. This is everybody needs to take a step forward. We're placing bricks into a wall and building something. This is the first step. If we don't take it with something as simple as a letter, we'll be waiting for Sandag to act, we'll be waiting for other people to act, and this is our chance to step forward, take this first step, and invite other people to join us.
All set? Okay, I'm going to hop in here now. Couple things. This step has already happened even before I got on Sandag, so they did send the letter so that's good. But more importantly, I had to pull up the state auditor issued a report already back in March 17th of 2022. And I'll cut to the chase on the letter. This is the cover letter on the audit report about RENA and about HCD. Quote, overall, our audit determined that HCD does not ensure that its needs assessments are accurate and adequately supported, end quote. Goes on more. HCD does not satisfactorily review its needs assessments to ensure that staff accurately enter data. Goes on more. HCD could not demonstrate that it adequately considered all the factors that state law requires, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I'm very supportive of pushing this agenda item in even a better way, a further way, and more. Sending a letter to the group, individuals asking them to sign, I think that ship sailed already, and it's flowing. I think we add to it. So we should probably reconsider exactly what the ask is, and I'm all for putting a letter together as part of our legislative lobbying. And going back and pointing it more accurately, I think. We're happy to copy all the mayors, but I want to make sure we reflect what's already been done and go back. So I would ask that we have staff help us do this by writing, getting us the staff report. We have another meeting where we have it as an agendized item, and we can discuss where we go next. And it's interesting because we have two different Brown Act groups separate, and it's very clear we haven't been coordinating, which is what we have to do legally. But we're already on the same page, I think, and so this is great. Let's hone the point on this a little better and go forward.
No,
And
this
we
is
can do it
perfect
fairly
because
quickly.
I think your initiated item, along with this item, that's more of a backdrop as to what kind of current day, and you're reading stuff from 2022. The question is which is great.
Yeah.
So, is the letter not a lawsuit? I mean, is it not at this point where the cities are now suing HCD for not listening to our own state auditor that actually has the real numbers?
Yeah.
I mean, at what point do we sit here and go, hey, the cities are sitting here listening to a group that's basically unhinged, that's being backed by a freaking out of control attorney general. It's allowing this to happen. The judicial system's not backing the legislative system, but I don't know what the letter would say.
I think my point was, at a minimum, most of the people on Sandag, the mayors on Sandag, know about this letter, and that caused them to issue this letter that came up from probably the Sustainable Workings Group through one of the policy committees to the overall board, and the board adopted it. So the ones that have been there more than a year, longer than I have, already knew about it. I knew about it through our Neighborhood Voices and through Livable California. And so I'm just saying that I think I'm speaking along the lines of what Deputy Mayor Lyons said. I think we need to decide a little more succinctly and a little more honed as far as, because it'll look like we didn't read this letter if we sent exactly what's written there. It would look like we didn't know about the audit report, and we do. And so I'm all for getting more people on board, more cities on board, and joining the group that's already doing this. And what I'd like to do is formulate a letter that is from the Encinitas unique perspective, that takes into account our change in majority. It takes into account knowledge of the things that have already happened at the auditor, at the Sandag, and quite frankly, Livable California, our Neighborhood Voices, formulates that into a 1-2 page and says, hey, this is something that we're going after, and ultimately we're using that to get help on a future lawsuit. But we're not ready to go into any lawsuits here today.
No, of course. I just think that there's a point there where we, like Jim said, that if we sit here and wait for Sandag to come back around on us, this shit might sink. And so, if nothing else, it's just another knock at the door and saying, "Hey, we're still here, and it still needs to go forward." And what have you heard? Maybe maybe a report back from Sandag of saying, "What have you heard from the letter?"
Well, first of all, I'll assure you, I'm working along this lines at Sandag as hard as I can.
For the public,
making all those contacts. What was the other one I wanted to talk about? Cal Cities. That was one of the interesting ones. I'm the voting member. I assigned the voting member for Cal Cities to me because I thought Cal City has been off the mark for about 5 or 6 years, maybe even 7 or 8. Cal Cities was founded 100 years ago for local control of California cities. It's an organization of the cities of California to go to Sacramento and fight for city control, local control in our interests. We have, in this year's legislative, our principal goals, they have 4. One is local control, but it's limited to revenue, local control of our revenue stream. And I was at a recent San Diego Region Cal Cities meeting, and we had the executive director down from Sacramento. She was here, and that question came up, and I was one of the 2 that raised it. And she said, oh, no, we considered it, we're only about revenue, when everybody in the room is thinking the same thing we are, almost everybody, all the mayors that were there, that we need local control of our land use ordinances, and I believe that's really why Cal Cities was founded, revenue and land use. But they have chosen this year, whenever they did this most recent goal setting, to segment it out, and that's bad. So I want to send a letter to them too. So in order to say, hey, no, we want local control of land use. And we believe that that's why Cal Cities was founded 100 years ago, and you need to do that. So there's probably more than one letter here too, is my point. And I want to make sure we sound like we have everything coalesced. So, Jim, were you going to make a motion? If you are, I would. Oh, okay. Well, I think I'm asking a question, so I won't make a motion, but I'll tell you what I want in a motion, and that would be to have staff and/or the mayor work on a letter that would meet the point of your memo, but add to it any additional information such as the stuff that Deputy Mayor Lyons brought up, and we could even appoint a subcommittee to bring it back to the full council as quickly as possible, probably in a month or less, and then we could send whatever letter we agree to in that public meeting. But I'm telling you where I'm going, and I'll yield now.
Oh, different lines.
I'm next in the queue. So I did want to respond to a couple things the mayor said. I can't let this opportunity go by without reminding us that when we do our own 100% affordable housing, when we use our own local control to meet the affordable housing numbers, whether you agree with them or not, we still have the numbers. When we do that locally, then we not only have local control, but then we negate the need to fight this. We make the decision locally to say, yes, we will do the affordable housing and we'll do it ourselves. Thank you very much. We don't need the state to tell us. We're just going to take it on and we're going to do it well. And we're going to do it so it blends in with our context, that it blends in with our land form. It'll be our decision. So earlier in this meeting, I made the point that when we choose to do our own 100% affordable housing, then we choose that we have local control over that. So I can't let this discussion go by without pointing to that as a solution. So I just want to make that point. But second, I do want to make the point that I was the Cal Cities voting member 2 years ago, and I know Bruce wasn't on the wasn't in that position. So he hasn't had the opportunity to see how Cal Cities got to where it is. But back 2 years ago, every city has a vote, and they would ask all the cities, do we want to audit RENA? Do we have some concerns with RENA? And they could not get a majority vote to do that. So what that says is most of our sister and brother cities around the state are fine with the state mandates, and they accept them, and they say this is our duty, and it's our duty to provide housing and affordable housing. I just want to communicate that fact, because it's a fact. And this is why our neighborhood voices hasn't gotten traction over the years too, and I know the mayor will disagree with me on this, but I will be saying that statewide we have not gotten traction on this because our sister and brother cities are taking on the responsibility of doing affordable housing and housing as the state is asking them. So when we're looking at a statewide, We really need to know that and position our arguments accordingly in order for us to be listened to. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Hara.
Sure. I actually attended the League of California Cities new council members, and that was the number one topic and discussion. And it was, I sat there with Malibu, who has a number of 78, and they were so concerned about it. Talked to Altadena, who was incredibly concerned about it. Every question in several of the conference meetings we had was about the number. And so maybe 2 years ago, California cities voted that way. And I think people's eyes are opening up to it. I think League of California Cities membership is opening up to this idea that what was happening 2 years ago isn't happening today. People aren't looking at things the same way. They are, the numbers are now in their backyard. They're driving down their street in the traffic. They're hitting their pocketbooks, and people are starting to pay attention that this solution is not a solution. And League of California Cities is changing their discussion on this. Maybe it's not, hasn't been voted on as a fact yet, but the experience I had was very clear on that. I have a question about Sandag. This letter that we have came from previous Sandag. Currently, we have a new head of Sandag, Solana Beach Mayor Lisa Huebner. And what is her engagement and how will she respond? I believe she'll respond very positively to something like this, but I'd like to get your input.
Yeah, I can give input. So I believe Mayor, and I've known Lisa Huebner for 20 years, so she's already said she's very much for local control. Even it was the person that spoke up at the Cal Cities meeting was Esther Sanchez, mayor of Oceanside. She jumped up before I was sitting next to her. We were talking about this, and she got up and questioned, and I mean voraciously, and it was wonderful. And so I want to, if you're done, let me know, and I'll answer your question. When you're ready to yield, let me know.
Oh, I want to. Obviously, we need to band together as cities. And I want to lean on the fact that this letter that came up through Sandag came up through previous Sandag. I've not seen action from Sandag at this point to bail us out, whether they write a letter or not. The letter is only as good as the action behind it. And I'm counting on you, and I'm counting on Lisa Huebner and other representatives that go to Sandag to act.
Yep. Yeah, and absolutely. So a couple things. 2 years ago, I agree, there wasn't a whole lot of pain yet. And in fact, when I talked to the statewide people that are running Our Neighborhood Voices, for example, or Livable California or Cali, any one of those organizations are all similarly aligned and have similar origins. Their comment was that Northern California hasn't felt any of this pain. Their housing cycle is on a different cycle, so it hadn't hit there yet as of a year ago and even 2 years ago. So when Our Neighborhood Voices, they decided not to move forward with 2024, it was because of that. And their comment was, oh, you're seeing it in San Diego. Go down and look at the college area. Look at the SB9 condos, look at the ADUs. They're cramming them in, no parking, no infrastructure. We, of course, have an unusual number of density bonus projects, right, for most California coastal cities. And then the other thing that I think is quite telling, it's frustrating a lot of people, but it's also very, very telling that when you look at the number of low-income units, the state's not achieving it. So the RENA system is broken. It doesn't achieve even what they want, but it is enriching quite a few developers who have figured out how to game that system, and they are doing it, and we see them here in front of us, right? So I believe that just like our council changed very quickly, very decidedly, it's because we're building now, and people are seeing it. I've been a planner and involved in the planning for quite a long time. I could see this coming 5 and 6 years ago and have been fighting it ever since. Prop A, I can go back to 11 years ago. Prop A was in order to fight this kind of stuff. Now, it's starting in 2017 with the Housing Accountability Act. The Assembly and Senate went nuts, and they are just, and now I think there is pretty universal agreement from both Democrat and Republican-led cities in San Diego County. I know for sure. I haven't gone. I've heard from people in LA and San Francisco area, Bay Area, but and I think they're like-minded. So I actually think there will be a majority, and we saw the fundamental shift this year in our election. It's very rare to sweep a council, very rare. It's almost never happened here, but it happened this time, and it's because there is so much pent-up frustration. I know I'm preaching to the choir to a large extent, but trying to think if there's anything. I did want to address one other thing about the imminent threat to safety. Our legal counsel gave us an example of something that was a city trying to get a moratorium, and there was literally sewer water pouring in, and they couldn't even stop, or they took something like that. That imminent threat of safety is not there might be a wildfire. It is far worse than that, at least according to the current legal standard that we're being told. So we have to be very, very careful there and have to build quite a case. And one of the things we need to do, and we talked about this during goal-setting session over the last 2 days, is we actually need objective standards, and I mean objective, black and white, can't be misinterpreted slightly, black and white standards in our general plan for safety. If we can get to that point, we might have a chance, but that's a big lift. That's a very big, but we plan to investigate that and go forward. When you get to see the goals we drafted, they'll be going through staff now and get cleaned up, and we'll have more public discussions about those goals, and that's one of them, I believe. So with that, I'll yield.
Yeah, I just want to say on the backdrop of that, so we've kind of beat this horse. I think that if you want to direct staff to get back to us, it needs to be in a timely manner to get something, again, new head shed down there at Sandag. Like you said, the pain's being felt now. They didn't have a Palisades fighter, at that point. Like, there's just all these other things that you could add into as to why this now might be the right time. And if it's not that, then it is time for us to make sure that the state auditor is at least in line with RENA numbers, because they can't be just making up numbers because they feel good about those numbers. It has to touch ground somewhere.
And I'm still researching it. Again, this is week 11 or something like that. So on the response to the audit, RENA, HCD, I believe, and I don't have this in writing yet, but this is what I've been told. HCD agreed going forward, they'll revise how they get their numbers, but they so far have not agreed to go back and revise this current cycle numbers, which I think is quite telling.
Very.
Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean it's game over, and there may be further actions we and a group of cities or Sandag or Cal Cities could take. And we need to keep putting together that case. So I promise you, this is where I am looking, because this chess game is being played out at the state level, as you heard tonight. We got threatened by a private nonprofit that they're going to invoke HCD, and we need to be ready to push back, but we want to do it smartly.
So help me out in this motion. I want to make a motion to redraft the letter, bring it back 2 council meetings from now. I think that gives council 2.5 weeks to connect with us, to get it in a timely manner.
And the letter, I think the other thing I would want to be careful with is who we send it to. It's rather presumptuous for us to send a letter to we can copy them, but directing the other mayors to do something, that's a bit hard.
Sure.
Okay,
we'll join in if they
And
want.
I would like to just say, I think who we send it to at the state level too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to follow some guidance on whose desk it's best received on.
Yeah, and use our lobbyists for that advice, so.
And-
I know we've all been meeting individually with Jonathan Clay, our lobbyist. That's one thing I requested, because in March, we're going to be updating our legislative lobbying policy. So this is obviously can be, well, we actually last year put back into the legislative lobbying policy local control. It had been edited out substantially, almost completely, and we added back in opposing intensification of the California density bonus law, and we put in opposing state overreach of, and I'm not quoting it exactly, state overreach on our local land use control. So that's in there now today in our lobby, and that's what I talked to him about. I want to make sure we're looking out for any legislation coming down the pike, but I think he would give us good advice on who to send this letter to.
I think it's important to remind some people it is an election year coming up.
Yeah. I don't forget, do you? Not for you two.
If I may, what would be good? Yeah, we could do March 19th. That is actually when the legislative update is coming as well, so our lobbyist will be here. So the other thing is, if I could, I am not a council member, but if I could make a suggestion, it would be nice for staff to work with at least one or two council members on this letter, as we've got some direction, but there's a lot of passion and a lot of things that I think some of the council members like to say. So I would like it to be like a joint effort with the staff, and one or two of the council members would be really great.
Would that be a subcommittee, basically?
You could do that. I think the mayor had come up with an idea about a subcommittee. That would be nice, just so that would be something that staff can work with that group, and then you could bring it back as a united effort.
I would propose, if you're going to make a motion, that you and I be on a subcommittee together.
Well, I propose this with Councilmember Schaefer. Let me ask him if you would prefer to be on that, or you.
Either way is fine by
Either
me.
one of you.
I can do it, you can do it.
I'll go ahead.
As long as it gets done.
It's up to whichever one.
So I'll motion that you and I work as a subcommittee to dive down in this letter and bring something back on March 19th.
And this would be the RENA Reform Subcommittee. Fair enough?
Absolutely.
I just
It's a
want to
great
give it a
name.
title.
Yes.
It'll make it easier on the clerk. So that's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other speakers? If not, we'll call the question.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Let's see. So now we move on to item 13, which would be council member reports pursuant to AB 1234.
Yeah, I just met this morning in these chambers with the North County Dispatch, and everybody's doing well. There's one of the contract cities, Rincon, is looking to become a full-fledged member. There was some discussion about whether we want such a small group to have a equal vote, and so there's some roundabout about that. So they're going to come back to us in May, along with another follow-up for an August update as to how there might be a way for the other contract cities to kind of unite together as a single vote, so that right now there's 9 voting members. To have 16 up there would be a lot, so there might be a way for that, and it comes down to some of the admins on the finances side. So outside that, the running rate, there's nothing but good love for all of the North County Fire.
Last week I attended the North County Transit District Board meeting and 30th anniversary celebration where we unveiled the budget for 2025-26 and motioned that and put that through. It was a pretty remarkable budget. And we did the ribbon cutting on a brand new set of cars for trains. A lot of really exciting things going through at NCTD. They're actually helping us here in the city and being great partners with us. So Looking forward to reporting more on that in the future.
This morning, I participated as a board member at the Encina Wastewater Authority.
And I attended last week a Sandag Transportation Borders and Regional Planning Committee joint session. It was about planning, but it also had, I want to say, they call it Sandag 201. There are a couple of presentations that have been done. One, Sandag 101, Sandag 201, and especially with all the new Sandag board members, it was really informative. So if you want to go back and look at the tape, it's kind of a good, quick summary, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. We also got copies of the high-level planning document draft. It's got some nice maps in it, things like that. I actually brought back some copies. If it's okay, can we hand those out? They're public documents, and I'll do it through the clerk or through the admin.
So long as no action is taken on them. That's
No
fine.
action taken on it. It's just informational, and I thought it might be nice for you to have the hard copies to look at. They had them already printed, so I'm not killing any trees. Let's see, I also attended the Encina Wastewater Board of Directors meeting today. We had a really good summary of the fiscal year 2025-26 budget drivers and assumptions, so it's kind of like the very first step in budget planning. And we also were looking at a very forward-looking project that we did approved the phase one to move forward on an energy resiliency assessment report that, if we go forward with this, could mean that they will be able to produce 100% of the electricity needed by the plant on site from the bio-waste. So it's kind of cool. And actually do it at a cheaper cost per kilowatt than SDG&E by a long shot. So that's my report. Interim city manager. I'll get that right.
Thank you. Tonight I want to give an update on the Santa Fe project. First, the landscaping on the north side has been fully planted. The mulch and the cobble near SDA will be completed this week. The south side planting and irrigation will be completed this week. Then it will be followed by the mulch and cobble installation following the next week. Staff is working with the designer and the contractor, conducting final walkthroughs to address any outstanding issues and cleanup. The mid-block crossing across or near SDA is set to begin on Sunday night. Pending any weather delays, the contractor will mobilize for 3 nights and should have that work completed within 2 weeks. So we're looking to wrap up this project with the landscaping, the mid-block crossing, and everything by March 10th. Pending any weather delays, I did look. Looks like we might have some rain coming in on Sunday and Monday, and then maybe on Thursday. So depending on how much weather we do get, that might delay, but the completion date for everything looks like March 10th. So I wanted to provide that update for everyone. Thank you.
And so the goal there is to have it done with enough time while school's still in session, we can see how it operates.
Yes, the next step after that would be what we would call the observation period. During that time, we will be observing how the traffic, bicyclists, pedestrians flow. Staff will also be gathering feedback from residents, and we will be conducting a public meeting to gather that feedback as well.
The question is, how many of those cones can we clean up? As soon as possible on the north side at least, if there's not anything there, just to start looking at it.
Yeah, as everything clears, we will clean up as it clears up. Yeah.
But they'll all be gone.
Yes, March 10th is the date that we want everything out of there. But we might get some rain, so which we need, but could cause delays. Thank you.
City attorney report?
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
And city clerk, nothing. I think that's it, right? And so we are adjourned. Look at that, 9:30.